Hey guys, welcome to Green Bean Fiction. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if Deku became Moon Knight and fell for Mina? Part 1. This story is The Fist of Konshu by roprothepro. Before starting, make sure to hit that like button, as your one like motivates me to bring more stories, and subscribe the channel if you are new so you won't miss our latest videos. In this world, about 80% of the population possesses a unique ability, what we call quirks. Heroes rise to protect the innocent, while villains exploit their powers for chaos. But amidst this super-powered society, there exists a rare minority, the quirkless, powerless and overlooked. I was one of them. Izuku Midoriya, born without a quirk in a world that worships strength. But fate has a way of balancing the scales. When darkness claimed me, the moon offered its light. I became more than quirkless. I became something else. Now, I walk between shadows and moonlight, serving a god forgotten by time. Protector of the innocent, judge of the wicked. They call me a hero, a vigilante, some even call me mad. But in the end, it doesn't matter. Because I am Moon Knight. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to my 4th birthday. I was a scrawny little brat back then, practically worshipping All Might and ever hopeful for a quirk. Oh, how misplaced my faith was. That trip to the doctor would be one I would never forget. Quirkless. Just that one word, that one characteristic, a genetic anomaly. A slight change of the alleles upon my conception had shifted the course of my life so drastically. From that point onward, I was bullied relentlessly, and my mother, bless her heart, tried her best to support me. But fate had other plans for her. One fateful night would change my life in more ways than one. Let's look at that, shall we? Izuku Midoriya, age 15. Quirkless. Kachan must have been in a good mood today. I didn't get beat nearly as hard. As I'm making my way back home, I smell smoke. Upon further inspection, I see it's coming from my house. Mom. I break into a dead sprint, legs burning as I push myself harder than I ever have before. The acrid stench of smoke thickens, clawing at my throat with every gasping breath. Flames lick at the darkening sky, casting an ominous glow over the street. My hands tremble, but I don't stop. I can't. The door is barely hanging on its hinges when I reach it, the heat radiating from the flames making my skin prickle. I shove it open, stumbling inside, eyes darting wildly. The living room is a nightmare of shattered glass and overturned furniture, embers glowing in the carpet. Mom. I scream, voice cracking. Mom, where are you? There's no answer. I force myself forward, nearly tripping over debris. The hallway stretches endlessly, the walls scorched and blackened. My bedroom door is gone, blown off its frame, and behind it. My breath catches. And no. The world tilts, sound fading into a dull roar. Mom is there, crumpled and unmoving beneath a fallen beam, her eyes closed, face pale. Blood seeps sluggishly into the carpet, dark and cruelly out of place in our little apartment. My knees hit the ground hard, but I don't feel the pain. My hands shake violently as I reach out, stopping short of touching her, afraid to confirm what I already know. Mom, please, wake up. I choke, vision blurred by hot, stinging tears. I'll get help, I promise. Just hold on. But she doesn't move, her hand is cold, the sob that rips out of me is raw and ugly. I clutch at her sleeve, the edges singed and crumbling beneath my fingers. Everything hurts. My chest, my throat, my eyes, burning with smoke and grief. The world collapses to this single, agonizing moment. Why did this happen? Why couldn't I save her? A whisper cuts through the chaos, soft and echoing. Such pain for one so young. I freeze, breath hitching. Slowly, I turn, eyes wide and rimmed with tears. The figure standing in the hallway is impossibly tall, draped in white that glows faintly in the darkness. His face is obscured beneath a hood, but the eyes, cold and pale as the moon, glint with an eerie light. He steps forward, each movement smooth and soundless. Who? My voice is a rasp, hoarse and broken. Do not fear, Izuku Midoriya. His voice is deep, resonant, each word measured. I have watched you for some time. Such suffering should not go unanswered. Who are you? I stammer, clutching the fabric of my mom's sleeve tighter. What do you want? The figure's head tilts slightly, and though I cannot see his face, I feel the weight of his gaze, ancient and unyielding. I am Konshu, god of the moon and vengeance. His words echo, filling the silence with a cold gravity. And I have come to offer you a choice. A choice. My mind reels, but even through the numbness, suspicion flares. This can't be real. Gods don't just appear out of nowhere. My hands tighten, knuckles white. Why should I trust you? I ask, voice raw with grief and something like defiance. You just show up now, after everything. Konshu's eyes gleam, unblinking. Caution is wise, he concedes, his tone almost approving. But trust is not what I seek. I offer power, power to strike down those who have taken everything from you. To ensure no one else suffers as you have. I swallow, throat dry. Power. That word hangs between us, heavy and dangerous. I grit my teeth, fighting the surge of anger and the aching emptiness in my chest. And what's the catch? I demand. People don't just give power away for free. A soft chuckle escapes him, humorless and cold. Perceptive, Konshu says. All I require is your loyalty. Serve as my fist, my knight beneath the moon's gaze. Carry out my will, and justice shall be yours to deliver. Justice. The word twists in my mind, dragging up every helpless memory, every taunt, every blow, every failure. Kachan's sneer, the doctor's pitying eyes, the blank, unseeing stare of my mother. If I had power, if I wasn't so weak. I hesitate, hands shaking, eyes fixed on the ground. This is insane, accepting a deal from a god I've never heard of, after everything that's happened. But what other choice do I have? I can't stay weak. I can't just do nothing. If I do this, I whisper, forcing the words past the lump in my throat. Can you bring her back? The silence stretches, cold and unfeeling. Konshu's eyes dim, almost pitying. No, he says, blunt and final. The dead are beyond even my reach. The last flicker of hope snuffs out, leaving only hollow resignation and a smoldering, bitter rage. My hands clench, nails biting into my palms until they hurt. Then, what do I have to lose? The words slip out, bitter and tired. Slowly, I look up, meeting that pale, unblinking gaze. Fine, I'll do it. Konshu extends a hand, pale and clawed, glowing faintly in the flickering light. The emptiness roars louder, grief twisting into something darker, something that tastes of anger and longing and the need to do something. My hand trembles, but I reach out anyway, fingers brushing his. The cold sears through me, sharp and painful and right. Then rise, Izuku Midoriya, Konshu intones, his voice a command. Rise, and become the Moon Knight. 3 months after that night. The cold bites deep, even through the bandages wrapping Izuku's hands. His breath fogs the air, ragged and uneven, but he doesn't dare slow down. The courtyard is dark, shadows cooling beneath shattered pillars and crumbling statues. Only the moon offers light, pale, merciless, and watchful. Again, Konshu's voice resonates, cold and imperious, echoing off the stone walls. The god's form looms above, white robes billowing despite the stillness of the night. Your enemies will not wait for you to catch your breath. Izuku grits his teeth, forcing trembling legs to move. His knuckles are raw and split, smearing crimson across the cracked stone as he throws another punch. The practiced dummy, a mangled suit of armor scavenged from some long-dead cultist, rocks under the impact but doesn't fall. Every blow sends fresh spikes of pain through his fists, but Izuku welcomes it. It's better than the hollow ache in his chest, better than the memories that linger at the edges of his mind. Pain is grounding, real, pathetic. Konshu sneers, eyes glinting. You strike like a child. Again. Focus. Pain is temporary. Move. Flashback to the first night. The pain was the first thing. Burning and raw, lighting every nerve aflame. His fingers had barely brushed Konshu's hand before the world tilted, shadows warping into snarling faces and spectral claws. His legs crumpled, vision darkening. A necessary burden, Konshu had murmured, gaze impassive. The body must be reforged before it can wield my power. Izuku drifted in and out of consciousness for days. Fever dreams twisted into nightmares, his mother's lifeless eyes, Kachan's mocking grin, the doctor's sterile pity. But beneath it all was Konshu's voice, low and unrelenting. Rise. Endure. This is but the beginning. Flashback end. Izuku's arms ache, muscles quivering under the strain. 3 months of relentless training, And he's still not used to it. How Konshu pushes him to the edge, breaking him down only to build him back stronger, colder. The sanctuary is a relic from an age long past, half temple, half tomb. Carvings of eyes and crescent moons leer from every surface, watching his every misstep. By day, it's a prison. By night, a training ground. Your stance is wrong, Konshu snaps, voice echoing off stone walls. Lean into the strike, control the impact. Izuku adjusts, biting back a retort. The god is relentless, unflinching. But he's also right. Izuku can feel it, the subtle shift in balance, the way his next punch hits harder, smoother. The dummy splinters, armor groaning. But the physical pain is only part of it. Every failure earns not just wounds but harsh words, Konshu's voice slicing deeper than any blade. Each mistake, each hesitation is picked apart, leaving Izuku raw and seething. Yet beneath the anger is something colder, resolve. When the bruises fade and his hands stop shaking, Konshu moves to the next phase. The Ankh is cold in Izuku's grip, metal smooth and heavy, radiating a faint, otherworldly light. Symbols writhe along its surface, shifting when he tries to focus. Its power is not yours, Konshu warns, eyes glinting. It is a conduit, not a gift. Misuse it, and it will break you. The first time Izuku channels the Ankh, pain lances through his temples, like molten iron flooding his veins. The world dims, and for a moment, he sees through the veil. Spectral chains coiling around the practice dummies, shadows lingering in the corners, watching with hollow eyes. He recoils, breath hitching, but Konshu's grip is ironclad. Do not flinch. Control it. Slowly, painfully, Izuku learns to direct the energy, to form barriers of pale light, to wrench hidden weapons from stone, to blind opponents with a flare of moonfire. The power is volatile, a current barely held at bay, but each success leaves him a little steadier, a little colder. The first time Izuku handles the crescent darts, his grip is clumsy. The blades are sleek, weighty, etched with symbols that glint in the moonlight. Konshu demonstrates once, a flick of his wrist sending a dart whistling into a distant pillar. Dead center. Precision, not power, Konshu instructs. A careless throw is a wasted strike. Days blur together, throwing, retrieving, throwing again until his fingers bleed. The darts start to land closer to their marks, wood splintering under sharpened edges. The Ankh, too, becomes a weapon, its light forming chains to ensnare practice dummies, flaring in blinding arcs. Izuku learns to switch seamlessly. Darts for range, staff for defense, the Ankh for judgment. Each new skill is earned through bruises and exhaustion, drilled until his hands move on instinct. 3 months in, Konshu changes the pattern. The god leads him deeper into the ruins, where shadows twist and the air is stale with centuries of dust. Torches flicker, painting the walls with the faces of long-dead warriors. At the heart of the temple stands a massive chamber, the floor inscribed with circles and ancient glyphs. A brazier flares to life, casting jagged light across the stone. You are ready, Konshu announces. Tonight, you hunt. Izuku's eyes narrow. Hunt what? A cold, humorless chuckle. Those who defile this place. Thieves and murderers, crawling in the dark. Prove yourself. Bring judgment in my name. The temple's catacombs are a maze of narrow passages and uneven stone. Izuku's breaths are shallow, eyes sharp as he moves, shadows wrapping around him like a second skin. The mask Konshu provided is stiff, blank-eyed, but he forces himself to adjust, step silent, each motion deliberate. The first bandit doesn't see him coming. Crescent darts slice the air, embedding in a shoulder with a wet crunch. A grunt of pain, then silence. Izuku swallows, jaw clenched, forcing the bile back. Focus. Move. Don't think. With each fight, the movements become smoother, instinctual. Moonlit chains snare limbs, darts find throats, the Ankh flares to blind and burn. By the time he reaches the end of the passage, 3 bodies lie crumpled in his wake. His hands tremble, blood flecking the white of his gloves, but his eyes are cold. Izuku returns to the main chamber, armor marred and steps heavy. Konshu watches, inscrutable as ever. For a moment, neither speaks, only the crackle of torches fills the silence. Then Konshu inclines his head, just slightly. Well done, my knight. Izuku should feel relief, or pride, or something. But all he feels is tired, bone deep and unshakable. He lets the staff drop, the clatter echoing hollowly. Was it worth it? He asks, voice barely above a whisper. Konshu's eyes glint. Justice always is. The words settle cold and final, leaving Izuku alone beneath the watchful gaze of the moon. The alley stinks of garbage and iron, the sharp, coppery tang of old blood soaked into the asphalt. Saito shivers, collar pulled tight against the chill. His hands won't stop shaking, and it's got nothing to do with the cold. You're telling me one guy did all that? The rookie asks, voice too loud in the silence. He's new, twitchy, eyes darting to every shadow. Saito clicks his tongue, lighting a cigarette with a hand that trembles more than he'd like. Keep your voice down, idiot, he snaps, smoke curling from his lips. This ain't some urban legend. I saw him. Whole crew cut down in seconds, didn't even hear him comin'. The rookie scoffs, trying for bravado but failing miserably. Come on, man, no way some wannabe vigilante took down the Kishi gang solo. Must have been pros. Saito's jaw clenches, cigarette nearly snapping between his teeth. You think I'm lying? They pulled Shino's body out of the river, spine shattered, chest caved in. Cops didn't even know where to start. The rookie swallows, eyes widening. A hero. Worse, Saito mutters, voice dropping to a rasp. Heroes got rules. This guy, he's something else. White armor, face wrapped like a damn mummy. Moves like a ghost. Half the underworld's too scared to show face, till the heat dies down. He takes a long drag, eyes fixed on the mouth of the alley, on the shadows that seem to stretch a little too far. They're callin' him Moon Knight. Says he's some kinda God's enforcer. Bull, the rookie huffs, though his voice wavers. What kinda God needs a vigilante? A low chuckle echoes from the darkness, cold and humorless. Both men freeze, blood turning to ice. Konshu, a voice corrects, smooth and lethal, from the shadows behind them. Egyptian god of the moon. And you got the body count wrong. Saito's cigarette slips from numb fingers, eyes darting, too slow. A white-gloved hand grips his collar, slamming him against the brick wall with enough force to crack stone. Pain flares bright and sharp, air punched from his lungs. The rookie yelps, stumbling back, right into a crescent dart that pins his sleeve to the wall, edge glinting silver in the dim light. He barely gets out a curse before a gauntleted fist takes him out cold. Saito's vision swims, heart hammering in his throat. The mask is worse up close, bandages stretched tight over a face that shouldn't exist, eyes glowing with cold, unnatural light. Intricate patterns weave across the chest and gauntlets, a crescent moon emblem gleaming dully at the collar. The cloak billows, edges tattered and shadow-drenched, like something torn from the pages of an ancient curse. The grip on his collar tightens, and Saito swears he hears the bandages shift, like dry parchment over bone. Start talking, Moon Knight growls, voice low and lethal. Or we can try the hard way. Nezu's paw. The dim glow of the TV casts flickering light across the office walls, shadows stretching and coiling. Nezu leans back in his chair, fingers steepled, eyes narrowed with a mix of curiosity and concern. On screen, a news reporter stands before a shattered warehouse, police tape fluttering in the wind. Authorities are still investigating the scene, but sources confirm that at least 8 suspects were found unconscious, several with severe injuries. Witnesses report a masked vigilante in white armor, dubbed Moon Knight, by the media, fled the scene shortly after. The feed cuts to shaky cell phone footage, a white figure dropping from a rooftop, cape flaring like a specter's wings. Crescent darts flash, blinding in the dimness, and bodies crumple with brutal efficiency. The screen glitches, static hissing before returning to the reporter's pinched expression. Officials urge citizens to remain cautious, citing this vigilante's apparent willingness to use lethal force. Nezu's eyes narrow, tapping a clawed finger against the polished wood of his desk. Willingness, he murmurs, a hint of amusement in his tone. Interesting choice of words. He rewinds the footage, slowing it frame by frame. The mask is grainy, indistinct, but the eyes glint with cold, unnatural light. For a moment, Nezu swears the figure pauses, head tilting, almost aware of being watched, before the video glitches again. Moon Knight. Nezu muses aloud, a gleam of intrigue in his gaze. I wonder what drives you, justice or something else entirely. His smile is small and sharp, the gears in his mind already turning. The warehouse was dimly lit, the only sound the clink of crates being shifted. The cartel had set up shop here, unaware of the silent predator stalking them from the shadows. Izuku, cloaked in darkness, silently watched them from the rafters above. The familiar hum of adrenaline pulsed through his veins. This was his domain now, the shadows, the moonlight. And they were about to feel its wrath. First layer of attack, mystic stealth. Without a sound, Izuku dropped from the rafters, his landing barely a whisper against the cold concrete. Two cartel members nearest him never saw it coming. His crescent blades, glowing faintly with an ethereal light, flew toward them with precision, striking their limbs and freezing them in place as a cold energy surged through the air. The moon's touch was undeniable. He moved through the shadows like a ghost, his cloak billowing behind him as if the very night itself were a part of him. His words were quiet, but deadly. The moon's judgment is swift and unforgiving. His every movement was calculated, deliberate. They wouldn't stand a chance. Izuku continued his systematic takedown of the cartel's forces, one by one, with clinical precision. Second layer, interrogation and mystic pressure. After incapacitating several more men, Izuku found a key officer. His eyes were glowing faintly as he approached the man. Without a word, he produced the Ankh, an ancient artifact tied to his connection with the moon. Placing it against the officer's forehead, Izuku's will surged through the air like a silent storm. The officer's mind was overwhelmed with pressure, the mental force too much for him to resist. Izuku didn't need to strike him. With a whispered command, the officer's secrets were spilled. Names, locations, shipments, all of it came pouring out. Eraserhead and Police's POV. Meanwhile, the police and heroes were catching up. Eraserhead, watching footage from the latest busts, scowled. His eyes locked on the footage of the shadowy figure, Moon Knight. What are we dealing with here? Eraserhead muttered under his breath. There was something different about this vigilante. His moves weren't like anything they'd encountered before. The moonlit glow in his eyes, the way his body seemed to phase through attacks, it wasn't just a powerful quirk. There was something else, something far darker. Eraserhead clenched his fists, his mind racing. He had to find out who this new player was and stop him, but something told him this wouldn't be simple. Final layer, confrontation with the cartel leader and Eraserhead's intervention. Izuku approached the final part of his mission. The cartel leader, a towering man with a fire-based quirk, stood waiting for him. Flames leapt from his hands, twisting and turning in the air like living serpents. Izuku didn't hesitate. His cloak flared out around him as he leapt into the air, his body almost translucent as he phased through a wall of fire, untouched. The flames were no match for him. He landed gracefully in front of the cartel leader, his crescent blades glowing with cold light as he advanced. The moon's wrath cannot be outrun, Izuku muttered under his breath, the moonlight around him intensifying as he attacked. He cut through the fire, dodging with speed and precision, a blur in the night. The cartel leader tried to counter, his fire engulfing everything in his path, but Izuku danced around it effortlessly, his movements fluid and deadly. Before the leader could summon another blast of fire, Eraserhead dropped into the fray. His quirk activated instantly, nullifying the leader's flames. Izuku, momentarily distracted, narrowed his eyes at the new arrival. "You're in my way," Izuku growled, the mosque's eyes glowing with fury. Mystic element in combat. Eraserhead lunged toward him, attempting to disable him with his quirk. But when his power made contact with Izuku, there was a strange, almost imperceptible shift. The quirk didn't seem to work. Izuku's power wasn't tied to a typical quirk, it came from something far more ancient. Eraserhead's confusion was palpable as he tried again, but the effect didn't take hold. Izuku smirked beneath his mask. "You cannot stop me with your quirk," he said, his voice low and resonant, his movements swift and lethal. He used Konshu's influence to push Eraserhead back, his blows landing with enough force to send the hero skidding. Eraserhead, still confused, barely had time to react as Izuku closed the distance between them. He blocked with his arms, but Izuku's crescent blades sliced through the air like lightning, forcing Eraserhead to retreat. Izuku's strikes were fast, his body seemingly untouchable as he danced around Eraserhead's attempts to restrain him. Mystic element in combat continued. With a decisive move, Izuku landed a blow to Eraserhead's chest, knocking him off his feet. Eraserhead tried to get up, but Izuku was already on him, his crescent blades raised in a final strike. But just as he was about to strike down, something shifted in his mind. A voice echoed in his head, "You are the fist of vengeance, not the hand of death." It was a command, Konshu's influence. Izuku paused mid-strike, his weapon trembling in his hands. His rage subsided, but the hesitation wasn't his own, it was the will of the god guiding him. Eraserhead struggled to his feet, but Izuku knew this wasn't his fight to finish. With one last glance at the hero, Izuku dropped his crescent blades and knocked Eraserhead out with a swift, mystic-powered punch to the head, the moonlight surging through his fist. As Eraserhead crumpled to the ground, Izuku stepped back, his breath heavy. He looked at the downed hero for a moment, the weight of his actions heavy on his mind. But he had no qualms about the fight. Eraserhead had been in his way, and now he was gone. The moonlight bathed the warehouse in an eerie glow, and Izuku disappeared into the shadows, his cloak flowing behind him as he melted into the night. The judgment had been passed. It started with a whisper. Izuku crouched atop a darkened rooftop, cloak blending into the night. Below, a dingy bar flickered with neon, its patrons a mix of lowlifes and petty criminals. He'd been stalking the streets for hours, ears pricked for anything of use, until a snatch of conversation caught his attention. "It's happening tomorrow," one thug muttered, voice low. "The USJ, Shigaraki's bringing the Nomu, said it's strong enough to kill All Might." His companion scoffed, "You're kidding, what's he got against a bunch of kids?" "Doesn't matter. Boss wants it done." Izuku's blood ran cold. The USJ, a facility filled with students. He couldn't warn the pros without exposing himself, and waiting wasn't an option. His jaw tightened beneath the mask. "We move now," Konshu's voice echoed, imperious. "Since when do you care about students?" Izuku shot back, already moving. "I care only for the slaughter of those who offend me. They will suffice." Konshu's tone was almost bored. Izuku rolled his eyes beneath the mask but said nothing, cape flaring as he vaulted into the night. The next day, the sky was clear, until it wasn't. Sunlight bathed the USJ facility, casting long shadows across the training grounds. Pro heroes guided students through rescue exercises, unaware of the storm brewing above. Far overhead, unseen on the roof of the dome, a figure watched in silence, his cloak a ghostly shroud against the glass. Izuku's fingers drummed against the ankh at his side, eyes narrowed. Too many. Villains flooded in below, warping through portals in waves. His teeth clenched. He had to act fast. Then the sky darkened. Clouds rolled unnaturally fast, swallowing sunlight until the dome lay bathed in cold silver light. A massive moon hung overhead, oppressive and watching. Gasps and shouts echoed from below, students pointing skyward in confusion. "A little dramatic, don't you think?" Izuku thought dryly. Konshu's voice echoed in his mind, cold and commanding. "The wicked fear the light of the moon. Let them cower. Subtlety isn't really your thing, huh?" Izuku muttered. "I am a god, not an assassin," Konshu replied, unimpressed. "Now move, before they kill themselves tripping over each other." Izuku huffed but stepped off the ledge. His cape flared, catching air as he glided down, a ghostly white shape against the blackened sky. Kirishima frowned, glancing skyward. Is it supposed to do that?" he asked, squinting at the sudden moon hanging where the sun had been. Iida adjusted his glasses, frowning. "This isn't part of the exercise. Everyone, stay together." Bakugo scoffed, baring teeth. "Great, more freaks. Whatever. They'll blow up just fine." Then the villains arrived. Chaos erupted. Students scattered, pro-heroes barked orders, and blasts echoed through the dome. Midoriya wasn't supposed to be there. No one even noticed the white cloak gliding above, descending like vengeance itself. He landed silently among the chaos. Villains swarmed, corralling students, only to falter as white crescent darts flashed through the dark. Izuku moved swiftly, a whirlwind of fabric and steel. His staff cracked bones, darts flew with lethal precision, and his ankh glowed faintly at his side. "Efficient," Konshu murmured approvingly. "Not a compliment," Izuku shot back, vaulting over a crumbling barricade. "It was not meant as one," the god replied, tone cool. Spotting a cluster of enemies, Izuku drew the Ankh, hurling it to the ground. Light flared, marking a radius around it. When he flung a dart, it ricocheted between the villains, striking throats, knees, and wrists with brutal efficiency. Cries of pain cut off abruptly, bodies crumpling. Impressive, Konshu drawled. Shut up. Shigaraki's fingers twitched, scratching furiously at his neck as he glared at the monitors showing the chaos. This wasn't part of the game. He snapped, voice petulant and raw. Who invited the guy in the stupid white costume? Kurogiri's tone was smooth but cautious. It seems we have an unaccounted factor, Tamura Shigaraki. Perhaps we should. Shut up, Kurogiri, Shigaraki snarled, stomping a foot. This is my stage, mine. Get rid of him. His red eyes narrowed, watching the man in white tear through lesser villains with brutal efficiency. Crescent darts flashed, the staff cracked, and the Ankh glowed ominously. Villains fell in heaps. Stupid freak, Shigaraki seethed, nails digging into his arms. He's ruining everything. Uraraka stumbled back, eyes wide. A villain lunged, only to drop mid-step, a crescent dart buried in his shoulder. Blood sprayed, and Uraraka flinched. Who? She breathed, eyes snapping to the white figure weaving through enemies like a ghost. Todoroki's eyes narrowed, steam curling from his left side. He's not with them, he muttered, tone cold. But he's not one of us, either. Nomu killed that cheater, Shigaraki bellows. The Nomu's roar shook the ground, a guttural bellow that rattled the glass walls of the USJ dome. Muscles rippled beneath its blackened skin, eyes vacant but furious. It lunged with a speed that defied its massive frame, the ground cracking beneath clawed feet. Izuku barely had time to react. The Ankh flared in his grip, golden light bathing the battlefield. He swung his staff up just in time. The Nomu's fist met enchanted metal with a thunderous crack. The force sent him skidding back, boots carving trenches in the floor. Fast, Izuku hissed, muscles straining. Stronger than I thought. Konshu's voice was cold and unimpressed. Its strength is borrowed, nothing divine. Focus, my knight. Izuku's eyes narrowed. He shifted his grip on the staff, crescent darts already slipping between his fingers. The Nomu lunged again. This time, Izuku met it halfway, cloak flaring as he rolled beneath a wild swing. He drove the staff upward, a brutal jab into the beast's gut. The Nomu barely flinched. Izuku's eyes widened. Regeneration. How convenient, Konshu sneered. Izuku pressed the attack, darting in and out with blinding speed. A crescent dart whistled through the air, slashing across the Nomu's eye. Black ichor sprayed, but the wound knitted shut almost instantly. The monster's arm lashed out, catching Izuku's side with bone-shattering force. Pain exploded through him, ribs cracked, vision blurred. He bit back a scream, gliding back with the cape's help, feet barely touching the ground. His breath came ragged, chest burning. This thing's built like a tank, he growled. Then hit harder, Konshu replied dryly. Snarling, Izuku flung the Ankh to the ground. Light erupted, carving a golden circle around the Nomu. He flicked a crescent dart forward. It struck the Ankh, and ricocheted wildly, a blur of silver. Metal tore through flesh, ripping gashes across the Nomu's body. For a moment, it staggered, stunned, confused. Izuku didn't hesitate. He closed the distance, staff whirling, a strike to the knee, a crack to the jaw, a spin to the temple. Bone splintered, black blood sprayed, but the Nomu just kept coming. Then it caught the staff mid-swing. Izuku's eyes widened. Oh she! The beast wrenched him forward, fist crashing into his stomach. Air fled his lungs, his back hit concrete, armor cracking on impact. The staff was ripped from his grip, flung aside with a contemptuous snarl. Izuku gasped, vision swimming. Ribs screamed in protest, lungs burning. The Nomu loomed above, a shadow blotting out the moon's light. Clawed fingers reached, only for Izuku to lash out, crescent darts plunging into its arm. No hesitation. He twisted, boot slamming into its knee with a sickening crunch. The Nomu stumbled, momentarily off balance. Izuku seized the chance, rolling free and snapping his fingers. Light flared, and the Ankh detonated, a concussive blast hurling the Nomu back. He staggered upright, breaths ragged. Okay, he rasped. Plan B. Konshu's voice was a low growl. Your resilience is admirable, but this charade grows tiresome. Allow me. Not yet, Izuku shot back. I can. The Nomu rushed him, faster than thought, claws gleaming. Pain flared, searing, all-consuming. The Nomu's fist collided with his chest, armor cracking, bones splintering. Izuku barely registered the next blow, then another, and another. The world spun, limbs numb, vision darkening. Get up. Konshu's voice snapped, colder than the grave. Rise, my knight. But Izuku's body wouldn't respond. The Nomu's clawed hand closed around his throat, lifting him effortlessly. Black eyes stared into his, empty and pitiless. Pressure built. Air fled his lungs, fingers scrabbling uselessly at iron-hard muscle. This is not how I planned today to go, Izuku choked out, vision dimming. Konshu's snarl was almost protective. You have done enough. Rest. I shall deal with this abomination. Izuku's grip slackened. Darkness closed in. Fine. Just don't. Screw it up, he rasped. The air turned frigid. Moonlight sharpened to a blade's edge. Izuku's eyes snapped open, burning with unnatural light. Muscles moved without his command. Wounds sealed, breath steady. The Nomu's grip faltered, confusion flickering in its empty gaze. It wasn't Izuku who moved, it was Konshu. Fingers wrenched the Nomu's wrist, bones snapping with a wet crunch. A gauntleted fist followed, slamming into the monster's face, skull cracked, cartilage crumpled. The Nomu reeled, black ichor spraying. Konshu's voice was a death knell. Creature, your defilement ends here. The moon haunts you. The Ankh slammed into the ground. Golden light flared, blinding. A rift tore open above, revealing the cold, desolate surface of the moon. Spectral hands, massive, clawed, and wreathed in ghostly flame, surged forth, grasping, rending, dragging the Nomu into a maelstrom of divine wrath. The Nomu howled, limbs thrashing in panic. Claws raked uselessly at spectral flesh, bones snapping under relentless force. The hands bore it down, merciless and unyielding. Konshu's voice echoed, cold and final. The moon haunts you. A final spectral fist descended, an impact like a meteor strike. Concrete shattered, dust and ichor flared skyward. When it cleared, nothing remained of the Nomu but smoldering fragments and a blackened crater. After obliterating the Nomu, Konshu shifts focus to Shigaraki. Crescent darts fly. Kurogiri barely manages to warp them to safety. Shigaraki's scream was petulant, furious. Stupid, cheating freak. This isn't fair. Kurogiri's voice was strained. Perhaps retreat would be wise, Tamura Shigaraki. Shigaraki's fists trembled, but he growled. Fine. But this isn't over. As the villains retreat, Konshu relinquishes control. Izuku's body sags, exhausted but victorious. Come, my knight, our work here is done. Izuku exhaled, weary but grimly satisfied, and disappeared into the night, leaving heroes, students, and the world to wonder. Who the hell is that guy? Shortly after the USJ. The moon hung high, distant but ever present, as Izuku's steps echoed through the crumbling warehouse. The city's hum outside, a faraway rhythm, barely reached him inside the walls of his makeshift home. Dust clung to his boots, the cold floor biting through the thin fabric of his cloak. He had always hated the silence, yet tonight it felt suffocating. He stepped into the small, dimly lit space, a room filled with barely more than the remnants of old boxes, rusted metal beams, and chipped concrete. It was the best he could afford. A home that wasn't really a home, a place to rest, to hide, to be alone. The suit came off with a silent whisper of magic. A shiver passed through him as the ethereal white fabric melted away from his body, folding into nothingness as if it had never been there. His hand lingered on the last thread of his mask, pulling it off and placing it gently on the nearby table. The cool air hit his skin, and for a moment, he didn't feel like Moon Knight. Just Izuku Midoriya, broken, exhausted, and alone. His fingers brushed across the rough scar on his chest, the reminder of both his physical and emotional toll. The weight of his mother's death still crushed him every day. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, her warm smile, the way she used to fuss over him, her voice calling out for him in the night. It had all been taken from him in an instant, and despite everything he'd gained since, the ache never fully went away. Am I doing the right thing? Izuku whispered to no one in particular. The words felt hollow in the empty space, a reflection of his internal chaos. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for the old chair in the corner, sinking into it with a sigh. You question yourself too much, Konshu's voice answered, cutting through the silence like an icy wind. The god's presence was there, always, in the back of his mind. Do not waste time pondering when your purpose is clear. I know, but sometimes, it just doesn't feel right, Izuku muttered, eyes staring at the cracked wall across the room. I was never meant to be this. I just wanted to help people, but now. You are not a child any longer, Konshu interjected, voice a low rumble. Grief clouds your judgment, but it does not change the truth. You are chosen. This is your path. The weak tremble, the strong fight. Izuku's hands clenched into fists. I don't want to be strong if it means losing myself. Every time I kill someone, I feel like I'm losing a piece of who I was before. My mom, my dreams. Is this the price for power? Konshu fell silent for a moment, a brief, unsettling quiet. When he spoke again, there was something softer in his tone, a strange flicker of understanding. Power has a price, yes. But it does not consume you. It fortifies you. You are not weak. Izuku closed his eyes, letting the quiet fill him. He let the warmth of the memories with his mother wash over him for a moment, the ones where she was alive, and everything felt simple and hopeful. But they were distant now, gone. In their place was a man with the weight of the world on his shoulders, of a god's expectations and the legacy of loss. But what about me? Izuku asked quietly. Who am I anymore, Konshu? Am I just your weapon? Your knight? Another long pause. Then the god spoke, not with the usual coldness, but something more akin to empathy. It was fleeting, but it was there. You are both the weapon and the warrior. You are not merely my servant, you are my chosen. Konshu's voice deepened, and the sense of ancient power returned. I may guide you, but you decide your path. Izuku laughed softly, bitterly, to himself. If I even have one left. A deep silence fell between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Konshu didn't demand answers. He didn't push. It was as if he was waiting for Izuku to find peace on his own. Izuku's thoughts shifted. For the first time in weeks, he didn't feel the overwhelming urge to tear something apart or throw himself back into the fray. He felt drained, like the weight of everything he'd done, the people he'd hurt, the lives he'd saved, had reached its limit. Do you ever think, Izuku began slowly, his voice soft as if afraid to break the fragile moment, that maybe, we're not meant to be alone? That I shouldn't have to fight this battle by myself? The god's reply came low and ancient, with an edge of something almost tender in its usual command. Perhaps, but you are not truly alone, Izuku Midoriya. You have me, and you have the strength of your own will. Do not mistake the silence for abandonment. Izuku breathed out a long, weary sigh. It didn't fix everything, but for the first time in a while, it felt like there might be hope, not for the situation, not for the endless struggle, but for himself. He wasn't alone. Even if he was just a weapon, even if he was just one small piece in a larger game, he was still Izuku Midoriya. And that, for now, was enough. Izuku crouched on the edge of a tall rooftop, the fading glow of the setting sun casting long shadows across the city. Below, the streets were alive with movement, cars, pedestrians, the occasional shout from a bar fight, but for Izuku, all of it was background noise. His focus was entirely on what lay ahead. Tonight, something was different. He was already suited up. The white, ethereal fabric of the Moon Knight suit clung to him, the cloak billowing in the wind as it caught the last light of day, with the familiar weight of the Ankh hanging at his side. The cold presence of Konshu pulsed through the fabric, but it didn't feel oppressive tonight. In fact, Izuku felt almost connected to the night, like he was one with the shadows around him. I can feel your hesitation, Izuku, Konshu's voice echoed in his mind, low and commanding. You think you're getting closer to the truth, but you're still distracted. Your grief clouds your judgment. That fire, your mother's death, it's eating away at you. Izuku's jaw tightened. I'm not distracted, he muttered under his breath, eyes scanning the alley below. I'm focused. This time, I've got something. This wasn't some random fire. Someone planned it. A smart investigator, Konshu chuckled darkly. So you think you're ready to take on the ones who orchestrated this? You're still holding back. The truth will never come to light if you don't stop playing the martyr. You're wasting time. You know what you must do. Izuku clenched his fists, his nails biting into the palm of his hand. He hated how Konshu was right. For months, he'd been tracking leads, chasing shadows, trying to find any connection to the people responsible for his mother's death. But nothing had come. Tonight, though, he could feel it. The lead felt stronger. "You've been running in circles, Izuku." Konshu's voice was almost a growl now. "You think I'm here to coddle you? You're a weapon, a tool for vengeance. You will deliver justice. You will punish those who seek to hide in the darkness." Izuku stood tall on the rooftop, taking a deep breath. "I know," he whispered. "But I need something more. I need them to slip up. I need to find the people who started that fire." Konshu was silent for a moment, the god's tone no longer mocking but still carrying the weight of his power. "You waste time. There's no room for hesitation. You want answers. Then go take them, now." A crack of electricity snapped through the air, pulling Izuku's attention to the alley below, where two men emerged from the shadows. One was tall, with a scar running down his face, the other shorter, with a crackling aura of power. Izuku's senses sharpened. This was the lead he'd been waiting for. "Here we go," he murmured to himself, adjusting the grip on his staff. His heart beat faster, but he wouldn't let it distract him. Not tonight. As the thugs began to move toward their meeting point, Izuku dropped from the rooftop, landing silently on the ground. His movements were swift, fluid, controlled. The larger thug was the first to notice him. "Hey, kid, you lost or something?" The thug sneered, stepping forward, fists ready for a fight. Izuku's eyes narrowed. "I'm here for answers. You're going to give them to me." The shorter thug, his quirk crackling with electricity, snickered. "I don't think so, freak. This is our turf. You've made a big mistake." Izuku stood firm, staff in hand. He had no interest in playing games. These men were involved in something bigger, and he wouldn't let them slip away. The larger thug lunged, throwing a wild punch. Izuku sidestepped effortlessly, his body moving almost instinctively, then swept his staff forward to trip the thug, sending him crashing to the ground with a grunt. And with one crescent dart, there was only one left to deal with. The smaller thug wasn't so easy to deal with. Electricity sparked around his fingers as he shot a bolt at Izuku. The energy hit the staff, causing a sharp crack of lightning to run through Izuku's body. His muscles locked up for a split second, but he gritted his teeth and pushed through it, the sensation coursing through his bones like 1,000 needles. Konshu's voice came through in his mind, calm but insistent. "Don't let this petty quirk distract you. You're wasting time. Finish them. We're here for vengeance, not justice. You want answers, you take them by force." Izuku's grip on the staff tightened. The electric thug shot another blast, this one aimed directly at his chest. Izuku dodged, his body spinning gracefully, and in one smooth motion, he used his staff to strike at the thug's arms, disarming him with a fluid strike. As the thug staggered back, Izuku rushed forward, landing a solid blow to his stomach with the staff before flipping him to the ground. The thug groaned, his quirk flickering out as his body went limp. The larger thug had gotten to his feet again and charged at Izuku, but this time, Izuku was ready. He twisted his body, using the momentum of the thug's punch to redirect him. With a quick jab of his staff, he sent the thug flying backward, crashing against the alley wall. The fight ended as quickly as it had begun. Both thugs were down for the count, barely conscious. Izuku stood over them, breathing heavily, but his mind was already elsewhere. He didn't have the answers he was looking for. These men weren't the ones who started the fire. But they might know something. And he wasn't done yet. As he stood there, his thoughts began to race. The frustration, the grief, it started to pull at him again. He could feel it at the back of his mind, the nagging desire to use the Ankh, to use its ability to absorb memories from these criminals. It was a power he'd avoided using for so long, knowing the dangers of overuse. "You can't hesitate," Konshu's voice rumbled in his mind. "You are Moon Knight. You will use every tool at your disposal to finish this. Don't waste any more time." Izuku's breath hitched in his chest. The temptation was strong, so strong. But the risks, the power of the Ankh could change him. Could break him. But then, one of the thugs stirred, a small item falling from his pocket, a business card, slightly burned at the edges. Izuku bent down, his fingers trembling slightly as he picked up the small scrap of paper. His heart raced in his chest, a combination of anxiety and anticipation gripping him as his eyes scanned the name. This was it, the lead he'd been searching for. But as he stared at the name, his mind blurred for a moment. A wave of emotions flooded him: guilt, anger, desperation. And then he saw her face. His mother's face. Her smile, full of warmth, full of love. She was gone now, taken from him. His fingers curled tighter around the paper, a deep, gnawing ache clawing at his chest. This was it. This was the moment he'd been waiting for. He couldn't stop now. He had to find out who did this to her, to him. The truth was all that mattered. Izuku glanced down at the Ankh. His mind flickered back to the last time he had used its full power. The split, the chaos, the feeling of something inside him slipping away. He had been avoiding it. But now, he couldn't afford to wait anymore. He couldn't afford hesitation. With a deep breath, he pressed the Ankh into the criminal's chest. The magic surged, ripping through his arm, filling him with a sharp, searing heat. "No," Izuku murmured, a breathless whisper escaping his lips. His hand wavered. "I don't want to. I can't." But the pull was too strong. He clenched his jaw, his mind screaming at him to stop, but it was too late. As soon as the Ankh made contact, the world around him twisted and warped. The ground beneath him seemed to fall away, and a cold, menacing presence surged within him. Flashes slammed into his mind, jarring and distorted. A man in a sharp suit, his face shifting, made of mist. A pool of gasoline, dark and ominous, spreading across the ground. The crackling roar of flames. Screams. His mother's scream. The fire. "No. No, please." A voice echoed in his mind. It was deep, commanding. The presence that had been growing within him. It wasn't Konshu. This voice was different. "Yes, yes, you are ready. You are mine now, boy. You will deliver what I have promised." Izuku's body tensed, his head spinning, unable to focus. His vision blurred, flashes of fractured moments slicing through his thoughts. He saw the fire, the pain, the destruction. Everything was falling apart around him. The power coursing through him felt wrong, foreign. His grip tightened on the Ankh as the darkness spread. "Embrace it. You are mine now. The vengeance you seek, it will be yours." His legs buckled, and he collapsed to the ground, his vision spinning, his heart pounding. The world went dark as he lost consciousness. When Izuku's senses returned, it wasn't the normal calm that washed over him. No, this was different. His entire body ached, his chest felt like it was on fire, and the smell of blood, it was thick in the air. His eyes shot open, and he immediately gasped for air. He was on his knees, his hands pressed against something cold and wet. He looked down. Blood, everywhere. The rooftop. He was on a rooftop, but not the one he remembered. His head was swimming, the dizziness almost suffocating him. His hands, his suit. He was drenched in blood. His heart thundered in his chest, and the fear rose in his throat like bile. His mind was fuzzy. He couldn't remember how he had gotten here. The fight, the criminal, had he? His breath came faster. Panic clawed at his throat. He didn't remember. He couldn't remember. But as his gaze swept over the rooftop, the scene that greeted him sent a chill down his spine. Bodies. Dozens of them. Criminals. Thugs, each one laid out in twisted positions, blood staining the concrete beneath them. It was a massacre. Did I do this? Izuku's heart pounded in his chest, his breath quick and shallow. His hands trembled as he slowly wiped his face, only to find that it was covered in blood, his own, and theirs. "No," Izuku whispered, his voice ragged, shaky. I didn't. The voice. That voice in his head. It echoed again, more distinct now, its presence undeniable. You did this. You are mine." Izuku's heart pounded in his chest, the blood-stained rooftop beneath him feeling colder and colder with each passing second. The foreign presence that had gripped him, the dark voice in his mind, was still echoing, its words lingering like poison in his thoughts. "You will do more. You will take what is mine." As his body trembled with exhaustion, his mind racing in 1,000 directions, a sudden, sharp sound broke through the thick silence. The familiar pull of the moonlight seemed to reach into him, dragging him up from the depths of his thoughts. A figure appeared from the shadows, standing before him, tall and imposing. The moonlight gleamed off of Konshu's towering form, his large, bird-like silhouette casting an eerie glow on the rooftop. The god's eyes glowed like twin orbs of burning light, piercing through the darkness of Izuku's panic. Konshu, Izuku whispered, his voice hoarse as he dropped to his knees, too exhausted to stand. Konshu's gaze didn't waver, his tone still carrying that distant, unnerving calmness. You have used the Ankh, young one. I can feel it. Izuku's chest tightened, a mixture of guilt and confusion gnawing at him. I don't understand, Konshu. I couldn't. Konshu stepped closer, towering over him with an air of quiet authority. You've always known about its power, Izuku. But what you've done, it was more than just magic. The Ankh does not simply draw on power. It pulls from the very depths of your soul your darkest desires, your deepest fears, your unquenchable need for vengeance. Izuku's breath caught in his throat. His hand clenched, still shaking from the overwhelming experience. But I didn't want this. Of course not. Konshu's voice softened, though there was no warmth in it. But the Ankh is not merciful. It knows your pain. It feels your rage, your sorrow. And if you are not strong enough to control it, it will control you. It will consume you, just as it nearly has. Izuku's pulse quickened at the realization. He had felt it, something in him slipping, something unraveling, a force inside of him pulling at the very core of his being. His heart hammered in his chest. But why? Why now? Izuku choked out, his voice barely audible. I've killed before, and I've always been able to control it. Why did this feel different? Konshu let out a low, rumbling laugh, though there was no amusement in it. You were desperate, boy. You were this close to breaking. You've been seeking answers about your mother for so long that you let your emotions, your pain, cloud your judgment. When you used the Ankh tonight, you were on the brink. It reached into that part of you, the part that would do anything for justice, anything for vengeance. Izuku's breath came in ragged gasps as he struggled to come to terms with what Konshu was telling him. You're saying, the Ankh made me do this. Konshu's eyes glowed brighter in the dark, his voice low and filled with gravity. It did not make you, Izuku. But it showed you a path. It showed you what you were capable of, if you were willing to surrender to it. It's not a matter of being good or evil, but about how far you are willing to go in the name of vengeance. The Ankh will never give you a choice, it will always offer you the chance to take what you want. Izuku swallowed hard, his throat dry. I don't want to be like this. His voice cracked with a mixture of fear and self-loathing. I don't want to lose myself to it. Konshu's shadowed face softened, his gaze sharpening with something close to understanding. You must never lose control, Izuku. If you allow your emotions to rule you, the Ankh will consume you, body and soul. You are more than just the anger you feel. You must keep your head clear, your heart strong. Only then can you wield the Ankh without losing yourself in the process. Izuku closed his eyes, gripping his chest as if to hold himself together. He felt the weight of his mother's death pressing down on him more heavily than ever. His thoughts were clouded with the vision of her face, her smile, and then the pain, the fire, the loss. But now, more than ever, he understood what Konshu meant. The darkness inside him, the grief and rage, was a fire that could either burn brightly, cleansing everything in its path, or consume him from within. I can control it, Izuku murmured, his voice filled with determination, though his body still shook with the aftershocks of his earlier actions. I know you can, Konshu said, his tone almost approving. But it will take time, boy. You will falter, but you must never forget what you are fighting for. Vengeance is not just about destruction. It is about balance. You cannot let it turn you into something you are not. Izuku nodded, his hand gripping the edge of the rooftop as he stood, slowly but steadily. His body still felt heavy, like it was weighed down by 1,000 unseen chains. But there was something else there now, a sense of purpose, a clarity. He couldn't let the darkness consume him. Not now, not ever. Thank you, Konshu, Izuku said softly, though his voice was filled with uncertainty. I don't know how I can do this, but I'll try. I will control it. Konshu's figure loomed behind him, casting a long shadow over the rooftop as he stood tall and silent. You will, Izuku, and remember this: when you find the truth about your mother's death, I will be right there beside you. The vengeance you seek will be delivered. But you must stay true to yourself. With those final words, the god of vengeance vanished into the shadows, leaving Izuku alone on the rooftop with his thoughts and the dark weight of the Ankh in his hand. The night stretched out before him, and the path ahead was uncertain. But for the first time in a long while, Izuku felt like he had something to hold on to, something worth fighting for. Mina Ashido had always been the type to take risks, but this one felt like it might be her last. She'd been tailing a suspicious group of criminals for days now, and tonight, she was sure she was going to crack their operation wide open. What she hadn't counted on, however, was getting caught. She had been following them into a dark alley when a hand had suddenly clamped over her mouth, and before she knew it, she was dragged into a nearby van. Her quirk was no good to her now. They'd tied her up tightly and covered her mouth with duct tape, making sure she couldn't use her acid. The air in the van smelled stale and musty, the rough bounce of the vehicle rocking her back and forth. Her heart raced as she struggled against the ropes, but it was useless. She was trapped. After what felt like an eternity, the van stopped. The doors swung open, and Mina was shoved out, her knees scraping the gravel below as she tried to stand. The men grinned at her, their faces smug with malice. "Shut up and get inside," one of them ordered, shoving her forward into a nearby warehouse. The inside of the building was dark, the flickering light from a single, broken bulb casting long shadows on the walls. Mina's eyes darted around the room, trying to make sense of her surroundings. There were a few crates and barrels stacked against the walls, and the only exit was blocked by two more armed men. "Where's the boss?" one of them asked, eyeing Mina. She should be ready for him. Mina could feel the terror rising in her chest. She wasn't sure what the criminals wanted with her, but she knew it wasn't going to be good. Desperation settled over her, but she wasn't going to give up. She had to fight, somehow. As the men turned to talk amongst themselves, Mina twisted her wrists against the ropes, trying to loosen them. Her quirk was useless in this situation, but if she could just break free, she might stand a chance. And then, just as she thought she might be able to break the ropes, she heard it. A loud crash from the back of the warehouse. The lights flickered, and the air seemed to grow colder. A voice, low and guttural, echoed through the darkness. "Your fate is sealed." The men immediately went on high alert, reaching for their weapons, but they didn't get the chance to react. In the blink of an eye, a dark figure leapt into the room. Moon Knight. He was a blur of motion and unstoppable force. His suit gleamed under the weak light of the warehouse, the white material contrasting with the darkness around him. With the flick of his wrist, crescent-shaped darts flew through the air, embedding themselves into the chests of the first two criminals. They fell, their bodies limp and lifeless, before they even hit the ground. Mina's heart hammered in her chest. She recognized him immediately, the masked vigilante, the one who had helped them during the USJ incident. She hadn't expected to see him again, let alone like this, in the middle of a fight. Moon Knight's movements were fast, efficient, and brutal. Every criminal that tried to fight back was met with swift, violent retribution. His movements were deliberate, his strikes aimed at vital points, no mercy, no hesitation. Mina had never seen anyone fight like this. It was as if Moon Knight was more than just a man. He was a force of nature. When the last criminal fell, the warehouse was eerily silent, save for the soft echo of Moon Knight's footsteps. His dark eyes briefly flicked over to her, but he didn't acknowledge her presence. He was cold, too cold, and his gaze seemed as empty as the night itself. Mina slowly stood up, her body still shaking from the close call. She watched Moon Knight, unsure whether to be grateful or terrified. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice wavering, her hands still trembling. Moon Knight didn't answer right away. He approached her, his heavy boots echoing in the empty space, and without a word, he knelt down to cut the ropes binding her. Mina felt the sting of the ropes as they fell away, and she instinctively rubbed her wrists, trying to get some feeling back into them. "Thank you," she said softly, watching him intently. "I owe you one." Moon Knight didn't respond, his attention still on the fallen criminals. He seemed unaffected, almost detached. She could tell from the way he moved, no small talk, no pleasantries. This was all business to him. "You're Moon Knight, right?" Mina continued, trying to fill the silence. "I saw you at the USJ. You saved us there." Moon Knight didn't even flinch at the mention of the incident. He simply stood, taking a step back, his expression unreadable beneath the mask. "It's what I do," he replied in a low, gravelly voice. "But I'm not a hero. Don't expect anything from me." Mina frowned, taking in his words carefully. Her mind raced. Not a hero. She couldn't understand it. There was no way he could think that. "Look, I know what you're doing here," she said, her voice more certain now. "You're saving people. You're stopping criminals, just like a hero." No," he interrupted, his voice harsh. "I'm not a hero. Heroes protect people. They follow the law. I don't do that. I take justice into my own hands." His words hit her like a brick. She understood what he was saying. He was a vigilante. He killed criminals. He wasn't bound by the law, by the rules that heroes like her followed. But then something inside her clicked. She had seen him at the USJ. She had seen how the villains there were too much for the teachers to handle, and yet Moon Knight had swooped in without hesitation, saving lives. He'd been nothing short of heroic. Yes, he had done it in his own way, his own brutal method, but he had saved lives, and that was what counted in the end. "Listen, I know what you're doing isn't exactly how they teach us in the hero course," Mina said, stepping forward, her voice soft but insistent. "But you're still helping. You're still doing good. I'm not going to pretend to understand why you kill, but you're still saving people. Don't shut everyone out." Moon Knight turned his head slightly, as if considering her words for the first time. He was silent for a moment, his eyes narrowing as if he was trying to read her. "You don't understand," he said, almost to himself. "I can't be a hero. Not like you." Mina took a deep breath and took another step toward him. "Maybe not, but you don't have to do this alone. Everyone needs help sometimes, and I know you're used to being alone in this, but you don't have to be." Moon Knight's cold mask met her gaze for a long moment. Mina wasn't sure if he was contemplating her words or if he was just processing what she had said. Either way, he didn't seem to have an answer for her. Finally, after a long, tense pause, he sighed and turned away. "Stay out of it," he warned, his voice as firm as steel. Mina nodded. "I'll stay out of it for now. But I won't forget what you did for me, Moon Knight. And when you need help, you'll know where to find me." With that, Moon Knight turned and disappeared into the shadows. He was gone before she could say another word. Mina stood alone in the warehouse, her thoughts a whirlwind of questions and curiosity. She wasn't sure what kind of man, if he even was a man, Moon Knight truly was. But one thing was certain. He wasn't just a vigilante. He was something more. And she wasn't about to let him fight alone forever. Mina Ashido was not the kind of girl to take no for an answer, especially when it came to making friends. And certainly not when it came to a certain masked vigilante who seemed dead set on avoiding her at all costs. Ever since that night in the warehouse, she hadn't been able to get Moon Knight out of her mind. Most people would have been terrified, maybe even grateful to never cross paths with him again. After all, he wasn't exactly subtle about his methods. But Mina wasn't most people. She didn't know why she couldn't let it go. Maybe it was the way he'd moved. So quick, so decisive, not a hint of hesitation as he took down villain after villain. Or maybe it was the way his voice had cracked, just a little, when he'd told her he wasn't a hero. Whatever the reason, she was determined to find him again. Even if it meant breaking a few rules. "This is a bad idea, Mina." Mina huffed, adjusting the hood of her oversized, bubblegum pink hoodie as she peeked around the corner of the dark alleyway. Suyu's voice buzzed disapprovingly through her earpiece, but Mina ignored it. "Relax, Sue," she whispered. "I've got this. He won't even know I'm here." "That's what I'm worried about," Suyu replied, her tone flat. "He's dangerous, Ribbit. A vigilante who kills people isn't someone you should be chasing." "Yeah, but he saved us at the USJ," Mina countered, creeping forward. "And he saved me the other night, remember? If he wanted me dead, I'd already be toast. Besides, I'm not trying to fight him, I just want to talk." Suyu sighed, the sound crackling over the connection. "Just be careful, promise." Finding Moon Knight turned out to be a lot harder than Mina expected. For days, she scoured back alleys, interrogated small-time crooks, and stayed out way past curfew. She even managed to slip a tracker onto a thug she'd seen leaving the scene of a gang fight, hoping it might lead her to the elusive vigilante. But every time she thought she'd gotten close, he was already gone, like a ghost in the night, leaving behind nothing but a trail of bodies and crescent-shaped darts. And now, crouched behind a dumpster in yet another shadowy alley, Mina was starting to seriously regret her life choices. The smell was not great. Her hoodie was getting damp from the dirty concrete, and she was pretty sure she'd seen a rat scurry by a few minutes ago. She wrinkled her nose, shifting uncomfortably. "This better be worth it," she muttered. A scream shattered the silence. Mina jumped, eyes wide, and peeked around the corner just in time to see a group of armed men surrounding a terrified couple. Her heart lurched. She couldn't just sit there. She had to do something. But before she could move, a dark figure dropped down from above, landing in the middle of the thugs like a vengeful shadow. Izuku's movements were efficient, brutal. His staff whirled, cracking bones with every strike. One thug went down, then another, a crescent dart embedding itself into a third's chest with a sickening thud. The leader barely had time to react before Izuku was on him, twisting his arm back with a savage yank and slamming him into the ground. The man's head struck the concrete with a dull crack, his body going limp. Izuku's breathing was steady, controlled. But inside, his mind was a storm. He hadn't wanted to kill. Not tonight, not with the visions still clawing at his sanity. But he couldn't risk leaving them alive, not when they'd seen too much. He turned to go, cape fluttering behind him, only to stop dead in his tracks at the sight of pink. Too much pink. Mina stood a few feet away, eyes wide and mouth open in a small, oh, of surprise. Her hoodie, nearly neon in the darkness, seemed to glow against the gloom. Hi, she offered weakly, giving an awkward little wave. Izuku stared at her, brain short-circuiting. How had she even? "Are you following me?" His voice came out harsher than he intended, gravelly and cold. Mina winced, but to her credit, didn't back down. She straightened, planting her hands on her hips. "Well, yeah, I've been trying to find you for days now." He blinked. "Why?" "Because," she huffed, "you saved me, twice. And, you're obviously not a bad guy, no matter what people say, and I just wanted to." "Go home," Izuku interrupted, voice icy. "You shouldn't be here." Mina bristled, cheeks puffing out indignantly. "Excuse you, I am a hero in training, you know. I can handle myself." Izuku's glare could have frozen magma. "Not against people like them," he bit out, jerking a thumb at the bodies behind him. Mina faltered, eyes flicking to the fallen criminals. For a moment, her face paled, but she swallowed hard and shook her head. "Look, I just want to help, okay? I know you're not a bad guy, no matter what people say. And maybe you don't have to do this alone." Izuku flinched. For a second, her words hit a little too close to home. But he wouldn't drag anyone else into this. Not when he still had so much blood on his hands. "Forget it," he growled. "This isn't your fight." He turned, cape snapping behind him as he leapt to a nearby rooftop, leaving Mina standing alone. But as he disappeared into the night, Mina's eyes narrowed with determination. Later that night, back at Ua, Mina flopped onto her bed, groaning dramatically. Why is he so stubborn? Tsuyu, perched at the foot of her bed with a magazine, glanced over. "Because he's a vigilante who kills people, ribbit. But he's not evil," Mina protested, flailing her arms. "He's just misguided, or really grumpy, or both." Tsuyu sighed. "Just be careful, Mina. If Aizawa finds out, you'll be in huge trouble." I know, Mina grumbled, stuffing her face into her pillow. But despite her frustration, a small grin pulled at her lips. She'd found him once. She could do it again. And no matter how many times he pushed her away, Mina wasn't about to give up. Not yet. Later that night, Izuku landed silently on a rooftop, his breath misting in the cool night air. The city stretched out before him, a sea of lights and shadows, but for once, it wasn't the gangs or the investigation that occupied his mind. It was her, Mina Ashido. Pink, stubborn, relentless Mina Ashido. He pinched the bridge of his nose, groaning softly. "She's going to get herself killed," he muttered. "That is not your problem," came the low, echoing voice of Konshu, manifesting beside him. The skeletal bird's skull gleamed in the moonlight, empty eyes fixed on Izuku. Izuku shot him a glare. "You saw what happened back there. She's She's not going to give up, is she? No, Konshu replied dryly. She appears to lack both survival instincts and common sense. Izuku ran a gloved hand down his face. Great. Just great. What am I supposed to do? Konshu tilted his head, the motion eerily bird-like. If she becomes a problem, kill her. Izuku's eyes widened. I am not killing her. Then stop whining and deal with it. Izuku threw his hands up in exasperation. That's not helpful. I am not here to be helpful, Konshu deadpanned. I am here to deliver justice. Perhaps if you were less distracted by teenage girls, you might actually make progress. Izuku clenched his fists, teeth grinding. You are the worst. Konshu's skull seemed to tilt a fraction further, almost smug. And yet, here we are. Izuku groaned again, turning away to stare out at the city, the glow of neon lights casting fractured reflections across his armor. Why me? He mumbled, half to himself. Why couldn't she bother someone else? Konshu's voice was practically a purr. Perhaps she has a type. In that case, you are truly doomed. Izuku dropped his head back with a long-suffering sigh. I hate you. Yes, Konshu drawled. Now get back to work, Avatar. The night air was thick with tension as Izuku perched on the rooftop, observing the scene below. His eyes narrowed as he scanned the darkened alleyways, waiting for the thugs to make their move. The city had its share of criminals, and he was more than happy to remind them who was in charge when the moonlight hit. The cold, familiar weight of his Moon Knight suit settled over him like a second skin. The magic had become instinct by now, the transformation a seamless process. His thoughts, once clouded with doubt, were sharper than they had been in months. Ever since Konshu's speech, Izuku had been making a conscious effort to stay focused. His breath slowed, and for the first time in a long while, the anger and grief that had driven him seemed muted. He was in control, or at least, he liked to think so. Stay alert, Izuku, Konshu's voice echoed in his mind, but it was softer this time, almost like a reminder rather than a command. I know, Izuku muttered, preparing to spring into action as a group of thugs emerged from the shadows, their crude laughter ringing through the night. He was ready. No distractions, no doubts. He would take them down quickly and be on his way. The first thug didn't see him coming. Izuku swooped in with his signature speed, his staff landing a brutal blow to the thug's gut, sending him crashing to the ground. He didn't hesitate as he swung his staff again, knocking out another. The sound of bone meeting metal was satisfying, but even with each strike, the weight of his mission pressed on him. He was here for a reason, he had to stay focused. But that focus was suddenly interrupted. Izuku froze as a loud voice broke through the air. You, stop right there. He turned sharply, his eyes narrowing as he saw her, Mina Ashido, standing boldly in the middle of the alleyway. Her pink skin practically glowed in the moonlight as she surveyed the scene, her expression a mixture of confusion and determination. What the hell are you doing here? Izuku growled, his voice tinged with annoyance. He didn't have time for this. Mina, unfazed, grinned. I'm here to help, duh. You look like you're having fun, but I figured I'd pitch in. Izuku's hand tightened around his staff. This isn't a game, Mina. Get out of here. She wasn't listening, though. In an instant, she was already taking down one of the thugs with a quick spray of corrosive acid, disorienting him long enough to land a kick to his chest. Not leaving yet, Moon Knight, she called over her shoulder. Besides, you look like you could use a hand. Izuku was about to protest, but Konshu's voice stopped him, quieter now, almost amused. Let her stay, boy. She'll be more useful than you think. You've been getting too used to working alone. Izuku sighed in frustration. She's going to get herself killed. Let her help, Konshu repeated. Trust me, I know how this ends when you push everyone away. Against his better judgment, Izuku decided to let her stay. For now, fine, but stay out of my way, he muttered, before turning back to the remaining thugs, his eyes already calculating their moves. He couldn't afford any distractions, not now. Mina, hearing his reluctant approval, gave a bright smile and a thumbs up. You got it, Moon Knight. Let's do this. Together, they moved as one. Mina used her acid to create openings and disorient their enemies, while Izuku made quick work of those who dared to get too close. His crescent darts flashed through the air, each strike deadly and precise. The fight was chaotic, but in a strange way, it felt almost natural. Mina was good, very good. She wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty, and that made her an ally he could respect. She fought with energy and enthusiasm, and though Izuku had always preferred to be alone, he found himself nodding in approval. Her unpredictability balanced out his own calculated strikes. Together, they were a force to be reckoned with. When the last thug fell, collapsing in a heap at their feet, the silence that followed was almost deafening. Mina wiped her hands on her suit, a grin still plastered on her face. "See, I told you we'd make a great team," she said, catching her breath. Izuku glanced at her, his face unreadable as usual, but there was a faint spark of acknowledgement in his eyes. "You're not bad, but this isn't your kind of world. You don't belong here." Mina tilted her head, her eyes softening. "Maybe not, but you know what? I'm sticking around. You don't have to be a lone wolf, you know." Izuku's heart tightened slightly at her words. He wanted to push her away, he always did. But something in him couldn't deny the comfort of her presence, even if he didn't fully understand why. Konshu's voice echoed through his mind again, softer now, almost a reminder. "You don't have to do this alone, Izuku. Let her in. Learn from the mistakes of the past." Izuku sighed, turning away from Mina. "Fine, but you need to stop chasing me. It's dangerous." Mina's grin grew wider. "Danger's my middle name." Izuku's face softened just a little. "You're ridiculous." Konshu, ever the strategist, didn't miss a beat. "Give her your number, Izuku. If you're going to have her around, you might as well make it official." Izuku groaned inwardly but pulled out his phone. "Here, don't get used to it." Mina practically squealed with excitement. "You're the best, Moon Knight. I'll text you soon, promise." As she ran off into the night, Izuku climbed to the nearest rooftop, his mind swirling. Konshu's words hung heavy in the air, and for the first time in a while, Izuku felt the weight of his isolation more than ever. "You're right, Konshu," he said quietly, the words escaping before he could stop them. "I've been alone for too long." Konshu's voice was thoughtful. "Isolation is a dangerous thing, Izuku. It's what killed the last Moon Knight. He lost himself in it." Izuku frowned, the thought striking a chord deep within him. "Will you ever tell me about him?" Konshu was silent for a moment, before finally answering. "One day, Izuku. For now, you need to learn how to trust. Appreciate the connections you can make." Izuku stared at the city below, the weight of Konshu's words sinking in. For the first time in a long while, he didn't feel quite so alone. Maybe, just maybe, there was more to life than vengeance. "You know I can read your thoughts, right, Izuku?" Izuku nearly missed his step, the subtle flicker of hesitation smoothed over by muscle memory as he leapt to the next rooftop. His grip tightened on the staff in his hand, knuckles pale beneath the gloves. "Yes, I'm aware," he muttered, voice barely a whisper beneath his mask. Konshu's spectral form strode leisurely beside him, unbothered by gravity or pace, the skull-headed god's tone almost smug. "So you know that I know what you're thinking right now, correct?" Izuku grit his teeth, jaw tight. "I know." A silence stretched between them, the city a dull roar below. For a moment, it almost seemed like Konshu would drop it, though Izuku knew better by now. "Well, to answer your question," Konshu said, voice far too satisfied, "yes, the rest of her is probably pink as well. Even those parts." Izuku's step faltered, and if it weren't for the mask, the fierce red blooming across his face would have been plain to see. "Please get out of my head, Konshu," he hissed, words strained. "I'm already having enough trouble focusing right now." Konshu chuckled darkly, the sound reverberating through Izuku's skull. "Perhaps if you spent less time pondering such trivial matters, you would." "I thought you were a professional." Izuku bit back a retort, grinding out a breath as he refocused on the task at hand. It wasn't like he had meant to think about her. But after the last time they'd run into each other, Mina's face, bright eyes, bright smile, and too much energy for someone surrounded by blood and bodies, kept creeping back into his mind, no matter how hard he tried to bury it. She was too bright for this world, too bright for the things he did in its shadows. He'd made that clear enough when he'd tried to tell her to stay away, tried and failed. Because she kept coming back, kept searching, kept smiling at him like he was anything other than what he was. I can practically hear you brooding, Konshu drawled, snapping him from his spiraling thoughts. Would you rather spend the night sulking or actually find the men responsible for the last 3 murders in this district? Izuku breathed in slow, forcing the blush down and the noise of his thoughts to quiet. Right, he muttered, forcing his focus forward. Let's get to work. The rest of the night passed in a blur of violence and shadows. Izuku moved swiftly, crescent darts glinting silver in the moonlight as they found their targets with brutal precision. A flick of the wrist, a burst of movement, and another body fell, silent, permanent. For once, Konshu was quiet, watching with cold approval as Izuku tore through the ranks of petty criminals, leaving broken bodies and bloodstains in his wake. It was only when the last thug dropped to the ground, a crescent embedded in his throat, that Izuku allowed himself a breath. The alley was silent, save for the drip of blood against asphalt and the distant wail of sirens. Efficient, Konshu remarked, almost approvingly. I suppose thinking about pink women hasn't dulled your edge after all. Izuku groaned, dragging a hand down his mask. Please, he mumbled, I'm begging you, let it go. The god's chuckle echoed, low and ominous, and Izuku swore he could feel that skeletal grin widening. Not a chance, my little moon knight. Izuku sighed, leaping to the next rooftop with a grace born of countless nights like this. The wind bit at the exposed parts of his face, the chill a welcome distraction from the heat still simmering beneath his mask. Konshu's presence loomed beside him, an ever-present shadow. You should be flattered, you know, the god continued, voice unreasonably smug. She is quite persistent for a mortal, following trails of bodies and blood just to find you. Admirable, if a bit naive. Izuku's grip on his staff tightened. She shouldn't be looking, he muttered. She should just stay out of this. And yet, she doesn't. Konshu's tone was almost amused. Curious, isn't it? For all your grim declarations, you didn't exactly try that hard to stop her. Izuku bit back a retort, vaulting the gap between buildings with practiced ease. It wasn't that he hadn't tried. He had, sort of. But Mina was stubborn, relentless in a way that made his resolve splinter. Every time he'd snarled out warnings, told her to stay away, she'd just grinned, hands on her hips, eyes bright and unafraid. Like the blood didn't bother her. Like he didn't bother her. She's going to get herself killed, he snapped, more to himself than Konshu, but the god's chuckle echoed hollowly through his mind. Perhaps, Konshu allowed, or perhaps you're simply afraid. Izuku froze, boots skidding on the rooftop's edge. Afraid, he echoed, voice low and dangerous. That if you let someone in, you might not be able to bear losing them again. Konshu's words were a dagger between his ribs, sharp and unflinching. Grief is a powerful chain, Moon Knight. You've worn it well, but even chains can rust. For a moment, the city seemed too quiet, shadows pressing close. Izuku's breath misted in the cold, his pulse a drumbeat in his ears. His mind flashed unbidden to his mother, her eyes, her smile, the fire, then to Mina, standing defiant amid the blood and bodies, eyes too bright for the darkness around them. Izuku exhaled slowly, forcing the memories back down. Just, shut up, he growled, the words empty even to his own ears. Konshu chuckled but said nothing more, the silence almost worse than the taunting. Izuku clenched his jaw, turning his focus back to the task at hand. He could deal with Konshu's lectures and Mina's stubbornness later, after he dealt with the nest of thugs holed up 3 blocks over. The warehouse loomed, cracked windows glowing faintly with artificial light. Izuku watched from the shadows, crescent darts held ready, eyes scanning for sentries. The plan was simple. Quiet in, quieter out. Take down the gang, find intel, get out before the police swarmed the scene. But, of course, things couldn't be that easy. A muffled shout reached his ears, followed by the unmistakable crash of something heavy colliding with metal. Izuku's eyes narrowed, instincts flaring. He edged closer, boots soundless against the concrete. And then he heard it. Her voice, high and furious, cutting through the night. All right, you muscle-brained idiots, that was my favorite jacket. Izuku swore under his breath, disbelief and exasperation flaring hot and unwelcome. You have got to be kidding me. Konshu's chuckle was smug and immediate. Oh, this is going to be good. Izuku didn't have time to snap back. He moved, shadow to shadow, slipping through a cracked window and into chaos. Mina was in the middle of the warehouse, pink skin bright even in the dim light, surrounded by a ring of thugs with more piling in by the second. Her jacket was torn, singed at the edges, but her eyes glinted with determination and not a trace of fear. One of the goons lunged, and she met him head-on, a burst of acid splattering against his weapon. The man yelped, dropping it with a curse, and Mina grinned wide and unbothered. Izuku bit back a groan, already moving. He dropped silently behind the nearest thug, crescent dart slicing clean through the man's neck before he could shout. Blood sprayed, warm and slick, and Izuku surged forward, a ghost among shadows. A second thug went down, then a third. Mina caught sight of him mid-roundhouse, eyes widening in surprise. Moon Knight, she yelped, dodging a wild swing. I was, just about to. You're an idiot, Izuku growled, catching a goon by the throat and slamming him into the ground hard enough to crack concrete. Do you have any idea how dangerous? Not the time, Mina shot back, blasting acid at a cluster of thugs. Izuku cursed under his breath, crescent darts flashing. Thugs fell one after another, blood pooling and bodies crumpling. For all her recklessness, Mina kept pace, spinning and striking with wild precision. They moved almost in sync, Izuku cutting down lethal strikes while Mina took out limbs and weapons, covering each other without thought. By the time the last body dropped, the air was heavy with copper and the floor slick with blood. Mina panted, hands on her knees, but her grin was bright and unbothered. See, not dead, she puffed. Izuku stared at her, exasperation and something else warring in his chest. You shouldn't be here, he snapped, voice harsher than intended. This isn't your fight, Mina shrugged, not the least bit deterred. Too bad, she said cheerfully. You're stuck with me now. Before he could protest, Konshu's voice echoed in his mind, dry and far too pleased. Oh, I like her, the god crooned. She's delightfully persistent. Izuku ground his teeth, dragging a hand over his mask. I hate everything, he muttered. Later, alone on a rooftop with dawn creeping over the horizon, Izuku glared silently at the skyline. Konshu loomed beside him, unsettlingly quiet for once. The adrenaline from the fight was wearing off, leaving behind a dull ache in his limbs and a headache steadily building behind his eyes. Izuku exhaled, scrubbing a hand down his mask. You really had to drag her into this, huh? He muttered. She's not ready. Konshu snorted, a low, disdainful sound. Oh, please. The girl held her own well enough. Better than I expected, at least. That's not the point, Izuku snapped. She shouldn't be involved. She already is, Konshu replied smoothly. And it's your fault. Izuku flinched, teeth gritting. I didn't ask for this. And yet, here we are, the god drawled. Face it, boy, she's not going to stop. Better to have her where you can keep an eye on her. Izuku groaned, pressing the heels of his palms to his eyes. This is a terrible idea. Konshu chuckled darkly. Most of your ideas are. Izuku shot him a glare, which was, predictably, ignored. Silence stretched, broken only by the distant hum of traffic and the soft rustle of wind. Izuku let his eyes fall shut, exhaustion sinking into his bones. A beat passed. Then, for what it's worth, Konshu said, tone almost begrudging, she's a useful ally. Annoying, perhaps, but useful. Try not to chase her off. Izuku blinked, startled by the uncharacteristic lack of mockery. He stared at the god, suspicion prickling. Are you encouraging me to make friends? Konshu scoffed immediately. Don't be ridiculous, he snapped. You're barely tolerable on your own. I'm simply suggesting you not waste a valuable resource. Izuku rolled his eyes, a faint, reluctant huff of amusement escaping. Sure, he drawled. Whatever you say. Konshu's skull shifted, the god's eyes glinting faintly beneath the hood. Keep that attitude and you'll die alone, he muttered. Izuku snorted, tilting his head back to the sky. Better than dying annoyed, he grumbled, earning a scoff. For a moment, neither spoke, just the wind and the city and the faint, lingering warmth in Izuku's chest that he resolutely ignored. You're hopeless, Konshu sighed, exasperated. And you're stuck with me, Izuku shot back, the faintest smirk curling his lips. The god's groan was almost fond. Regrettably, this is an awful idea, Konshu. Oh, quit being such a loser, Izuku, and call her. But what if she finds out who I am? Yeah, a random teenage girl is going to know a guy that disappeared long ago. Now go make your god proud. You just want me away because you have a date. Hey, players gonna play, Konshu said smugly as his spectral form faded into the shadows, leaving Izuku alone on the rooftop with his finger hovering uncertainly over Mina's contact. Hanging out with a friend, huh? What a joke, he muttered under his breath. Whatever. With a resigned sigh, Izuku pressed the call button. The phone barely rang twice before Mina picked up, her voice bright and eager, almost too eager, like she'd been waiting by the phone for this exact moment. Moon Knight, she asked, the words spilling out so fast they nearly tripped over each other. Oh my gosh, I wasn't sure if you'd actually call. Wait, it is you, right? Or did I just get pranked by some jerk pretending to be you? Because if so, I'm gonna. It's me, Izuku interrupted, fighting to keep his voice steady. It's really me. Phew, okay, cool. Not that I was worried or anything. Mina's laugh was bright and breathless. Sue, what's up, Mr. Mysterious Vigilante? Need backup again? Izuku hesitated, the words catching in his throat. Not exactly, he mumbled, scratching the back of his neck. I was just wondering if you wanted to, hang out. Like, not fighting villains. The silence on the other end was deafening. Izuku nearly hung up on the spot. Wait, like, hang out. As in, a date. Mina squeaked, voice rising. Not a date, Izuku blurted, face burning beneath the mask. Just coffee or something. Casual, as friends. Oh, yeah, totally, I can do that. Mina's excitement was palpable. I mean, coffee sounds great. I love coffee. Well, I love anything with enough sugar in it, but you get the point. So, when and where? He fumbled for a moment. Cafe on 5th, noon, tomorrow. Got it, I'll be there. The line went dead with a cheerful beep, leaving Izuku staring at his phone, wondering what the hell he'd just gotten himself into. The next day, Izuku found himself regretting every life choice that led to this moment. He stood outside the cafe, hood pulled low over his face and a medical mask covering the lower half. It wasn't much of a disguise, but it was better than nothing. At least this way, Mina wouldn't recognize him from old photos, if she even remembered what he looked like. You look ridiculous, Konshu drawled, unseen but very much heard. Shut up, Izuku muttered, pulling the mask higher. She'll think you're a criminal avoiding security cameras, the god continued, tone smug. Which, to be fair, you are. Please shut up. Before Konshu could retort, Mina appeared, practically bouncing on her heels. She wore a pastel jacket with way too many pins and a grin bright enough to rival the sun. Hey, you made it, she greeted, eyes sparkling as she waved. Love the incognito look, very spy chic. Izuku awkwardly rubbed the back of his neck. I didn't want to draw attention. Nah, I get it. Secret identities and all that, Mina said, winking conspiratorially. Come on, I already grabbed us a table. She practically dragged him inside, chattering away about the menu and the best kind of pastries while Izuku struggled to keep up, both with her energy and the reality of actually being here, in public, with someone. The cafe was warm and smelled like sugar and coffee beans. Mina had already ordered something that was more whipped cream and syrup than actual coffee, while Izuku settled for a plain black brew, still too aware of every glance and shadow in the room. So, Mina started, propping her chin on her hands with a grin. Do I get a name? Or am I just supposed to call you Moon Knight forever? Izuku tensed, fingers tightening around his cup. I can't, he admitted, voice low. It's safer if you don't know. She pouted dramatically. Come on, not even, like, a nickname. Codenames are cool. Moon Knight is a codename, he pointed out, deadpan. Mina rolled her eyes. Okay, Mr. Literal, fine, keep your secrets. But at least tell me something. Favorite color, favorite food, pet peeves. Izuku blinked, caught off guard. Green, Katsu-dan, and people who don't take things seriously. Mina gasped. Oh my gosh, you're a real person under all that broody vigilante angst. He nearly choked on his coffee. What? She laughed, bright and genuine. Relax, I'm just teasing. You should see your face. Well, what I can see of it, anyway. Despite himself, Izuku's shoulders eased, just a bit. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. See, that wasn't so hard. Konshu's voice echoed smugly in the back of his mind as he walked Mina back towards the train station, the sky streaked with orange and pink. Look at you, being social. I'm so proud. Do you ever shut up? Izuku muttered. Not a chance. Mina turned, walking backward with a grin. You talking to yourself, or do you just like mumbling dramatically for effect? Izuku stiffened. No, just thinking. She giggled. Well, don't brood too hard. You'll get wrinkles. Anyway, this was super fun. We should do it again sometime. Right, he mumbled, trying to hide the flush creeping up his neck. Sure, awesome. Catch you later, Mr. Mysterious. Mina called with a wave, turning on her heel and practically skipping towards the train. Izuku watched her go, feeling oddly warm. You're hopeless, Konshu sighed dramatically. Just ask her out already. Shut up, Izuku grumbled, pulling his hood lower as he turned back to the rooftops. Konshu chuckled darkly. Young love, how tragic. Izuku groaned. I hate you. Sure you do. Aizawa Shota had dealt with vigilantes before. Some were petty, others reckless. A few even had noble intentions buried under their disregard for the law. None, however, had ever concerned him quite like Moon Knight. The reports were too consistent to ignore. Broken bodies left for the police to clean up, corpses marked with crescent-shaped wounds, and whispers of a skull-faced god. Normally, vigilantes were content with cracking a few ribs and vanishing into the night. Moon Knight, however, left a trail of bodies and fear. Aizawa leaned back in his chair, the dim light of the agency office casting shadows across the stacks of reports. He picked up another witness statement, eyes narrowing at the familiar phrases, white cloak, crescent weapons, Konshu. That name had appeared too many times to be dismissed as a delusion shared by traumatized criminals. Who the hell is Konshu? He muttered, pinching the bridge of his nose. He swiveled to his laptop, fingers flying across the keys. A few minutes later, an image filled the screen, an ancient statue of a god with a bird skull for a head, hieroglyphics carved into its base. Konshu, Egyptian god of the moon and vengeance. Aizawa exhaled slowly, crossing his arms. Fantastic. A moon-themed cult. But the deeper he dug, the less this seemed like some delusion cooked up by a psychopath. Konshu was worshipped as a protector of travelers at night, a guardian against evil. And the rumors about Moon Knight, the precision, the brutality, didn't match the chaos of typical vigilantes. It was a purpose, a mission. Aizawa glanced at the map pinned to the wall, strings of red tape connecting incidents across the city. If he wanted answers, he'd need to go to the source. Shift. Izuku. The city was unusually quiet tonight, rooftops bathed in silver as Izuku prowled the skyline. The air was cold against the exposed part of his face, the mask warm in contrast. He had just landed, boots skidding to a halt, when Konshu's voice curled darkly in his mind. Someone has invaded my temple. Izuku froze, fingers twitching around the staff. Your temple? Yes, the one buried in sand and desecrated by mortal hands as we speak. Konshu's tone was as dry as the desert itself. Deal with it. But I'm in Japan, Izuku protested, eyes narrowing. Konshu scoffed. And I am a god. Do try to keep up, my little Moon Knight. The world spun, shadows curling at the edge of his vision. Izuku barely had time to curse before a pull, cold and absolute, yanked him through darkness. Shift. Aizawa. 2 flights, a cramped bus ride, and several hours in a sweltering desert later, Aizawa found himself standing before a half-buried temple entrance, sand hissing against stone in the wind. The hieroglyphics were faded but unmistakable, the crescent moon symbol, the same one carved into the foreheads of too many corpses back in Japan. He exhaled slowly, hand steady on his capture weapon as he descended into the dark. The air inside was cool, oppressive, each step echoing off ancient walls. Torches flickered to life as he passed, leading him deeper. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. Torches didn't light themselves. The chamber at the end of the corridor was massive, moonlight spilling through a crack in the ceiling to illuminate a stone altar. And there, perched atop a throne of cracked stone, sat the unmistakable figure of Konshu. Aizawa stared, half expecting some trick of the light, a hidden projector, anything rational. Gods didn't exist. Magic didn't exist. And yet, the skull-faced figure was unmistakably real, hollow eyes glinting with cold light. Aizawa's jaw clenched, mind racing even as every instinct screamed to back away. Holograms. Quirks. There has to be an explanation. Well, this is unexpected, the god mused, voice a low rumble. A mortal invades my temple. You're either brave or profoundly stupid. Aizawa tensed, fingers twitching at the capture weapon around his neck. I'm here for answers. Konshu's hollow eyes glinted. How quaint. Unfortunately, I have little time for mortal inquiries. My knight, however. A pulse of energy raced through the chamber, the torches flaring bright. Aizawa's instincts screamed, and he sprang back just as a figure dropped into view, cloak flaring. Moon Knight stood between him and Konshu's altar, staff in hand and eyes glowing behind the mask. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then Moon Knight lunged, staff sweeping out in a brutal arc. Paw shift. Izuku. Izuku's vision cleared just in time to see a capture weapon snap toward him, cloth winding around his wrist. He grunted, wrenching himself free with a twist, staff slamming down to intercept Aizawa's strike. He didn't need Konshu's cold approval to recognize the man in front of him, the infamous Eraserhead, underground hero and relentless investigator. Just his luck, really. Izuku hissed internally. You teleported me across continents for this. Priorities, my little Moon Knight, Konshu drawled. Now, make him leave. Izuku bit back a curse, movements sharper, staff a blur as he pressed the offensive. Aizawa's eyes narrowed, quirk activating with a subtle shift. The energy thrumming through Izuku's veins stuttered, faltering for an instant. But his body moved on instinct, training and muscle memory pushing forward even as magic slipped from his grasp. The staff cracked against Aizawa's side, drawing a grunt and a staggered step back. Paw shift. Aizawa barely managed to parry, capture weapon snapping out to wind around Moon Knight's wrist. For a moment, he had the upper hand, then the staff cracked across his jaw, the world tilting sideways. He hit the ground hard, stars bursting behind his eyes. Persistent, Moon Knight remarked, voice flat. I'll give you that. A boot pressed into Aizawa's chest, pinning him. The mask stared down, expressionless and unfeeling. Aizawa grit his teeth, struggling against the weight. Your quirk won't save you, Moon Knight said coldly. Stop following me. This is your only warning. Then a flash of golden light swallowed the room. When Aizawa's vision cleared, he was alone. No throne, no altar, no torches. Just empty stone and the hiss of sand through the cracks. Aizawa woke with a jolt, head pounding and sun scorching his eyes. His body ached, blood crusted against his cheek. Stone walls had been replaced with the cracked asphalt of a desert road, the distant outline of a town barely visible through the heat. He groaned, pushing himself up, hand instinctively brushing the pocket of his coat. A slip of paper crinkled beneath his fingers. Scrawled in sharp, efficient handwriting was a single sentence. Stay out of my way. Aizawa crumpled it in his fist, eyes narrowing. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Izuku sat across from Mina in a cozy restaurant booth, the soft glow of dim lights casting warm shadows around them. Mina was spinning a straw wrapper between her fingers, eyes bright with curiosity as she leaned in. So, she began, smirking. How does Moon Knight get his hands on stuff from Egypt, huh? Izuku shifted slightly, a hint of nervousness beneath the cool facade. Connections, he said casually, though the slight stiffness in his shoulders gave him away. Connections, she repeated, raising an eyebrow. You make it sound like you've got some kind of secret spy network or something. Izuku almost choked on his water. It's, not that complicated. Mina chuckled, clearly amused. She picked up the small gift box he had slid across the table and pulled out the anklet inside, its silver charms glinting in the light. One was shaped like a crescent moon, intricately detailed. I love it, she said, slipping it onto her ankle. You've got good taste for a guy who wears the same cape every night. Izuku managed a soft chuckle, some of the tension melting away. For a moment, everything felt almost normal. They wandered down the quiet streets after dinner, the air crisp and cool. Mina swung their hands slightly where they were linked, talking animatedly about a new movie she wanted to see. Izuku, for his part, listened intently, even if his gaze kept flickering to every shadow, every sound, instinctively alert. But the calm didn't last. A sudden shout from a nearby alley snapped Izuku's focus, his entire body tensing. Mina barely had time to blink before he pulled away, already moving. I'll be right back," he called over his shoulder, disappearing into the darkness. Izuku, wait," Mina groaned, throwing her hands up. Seriously, the alley was chaos. 3 men surrounded a terrified civilian, one wielding a knife. Izuku's gloved hand clenched, magic flaring instinctively. His suit enveloped him in an instant. Hood, cape, armor fitting into place with a whisper of power. The thugs had barely registered his presence before he was on them, crescent darts finding their targets with lethal precision. A few brutal moments later, the attackers were unconscious on the ground. The civilian scrambled away with a breathless, "Thank you," leaving Izuku alone amidst the carnage. He turned, cape swishing, and nearly froze when he saw Mina standing at the alley's mouth, eyes wide with shock. She blinked rapidly, gaze darting from the unconscious thugs to Izuku, no, to Moon Knight, and back again. Did your suit just, magically appear?" Izuku hesitated. He hadn't meant for her to see that. Usually, he kept the magic subtle, crescent darts, the glider cape, things that could be dismissed as advanced tech. But this was different. A familiar voice echoed in his mind, dry and unbothered. "You might as well tell her everything now, boy. Keeping secrets is only going to make this worse." Izuku clenched his jaw, not helping. "Konshu." Mina's eyes narrowed. "Wait, who are you talking to?" He took a slow breath, his shoulders dropping slightly. Fine, if Konshu wanted this, then, well, maybe it was time. "Come with me," he said quietly, stepping forward and offering a gloved hand. She hesitated for only a moment before taking it. They ended up on a nearby rooftop, the city sprawled below in a glittering expanse of lights and shadows. The moon hung high and bright, casting silver beams across the world. Izuku pulled off his hood and mask, though he kept the rest of his suit. The wind tugged at his cape, but for once, he didn't try to hide behind it. He told her everything. About the fire, about his mother, how he hadn't been able to save her, how the flames had taken everything. How he'd crawled through the ashes, burned and broken, until the darkness closed in. How he should have died that night, how part of him still wished he had. Mina's eyes were wide, glistening with unshed tears. Her fingers tightened around his, a small, grounding comfort. Izuku's voice was raw, rasping. "When I woke up, I was in Konshu's temple. He offered me a deal. Power, in exchange for vengeance. For making things right." He swallowed, voice cracking. "I didn't even hesitate." Mina bit her lip, eyes searching his face. "But, a god, magic." Izuku exhaled shakily. "I know how it sounds. But it's real. He's real." Mina frowned, disbelief shadowing her eyes. "Izuku, I want to believe you, but..." A low, familiar chuckle echoed through the night, dry and amused. "If you need proof, girl, all you had to do was ask." Mina yelped as the shadows twisted, coiling into the tall, skeletal form of Konshu. Mina stared, slack-jawed. "Is that a real life?" "Yes," Konshu drawled. "I am very real, and yes, the boy wasn't lying." "Can we move on?" Mina turned to Izuku, voice softening. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Izuku's shoulders slumped, guilt flashing across his face. "I didn't want you to look at me like I'm a monster." Her expression softened, and she stepped closer, wrapping her arms around him in a warm, steady hug. "You're not a monster, Izuku. You're an idiot for not telling me, but definitely not a monster." His breath hitched, and he hesitated before hugging her back. He couldn't remember the last time someone had held him like this, warm and genuine, without hesitation. His heart ached and fluttered all at once, and for a moment, the weight of grief didn't seem so crushing. She pulled back, eyes bright. "You know you're stuck with me now, right?" she teased. Izuku's cheeks flushed, but a soft, genuine smile tugged at his lips. I think I can live with that." Konshu groaned. "Mortals and their sap, are you quite done?" Mina rolled her eyes. Yeah, we're done, birdbrain." She grinned, grabbing his hand and intertwining their fingers. "Come on, Moon Knight, walk me home." Izuku's heart did a little flip-flop, warmth spreading through his chest. Why yeah, I'd like that. They walked under the moonlight, hand in hand, the world around them soft and hushed. Izuku couldn't stop glancing at their joined hands, a small, almost disbelieving smile playing at the edges of his lips. But as they rounded a corner, laughter echoed down the street. Mina froze, eyes widening as she spotted Kirishima and Shiro a few paces ahead, their conversation dying abruptly when they noticed her. Their eyes darted to Izuku, hood up, face half shadowed by the dim light, then to their interlaced hands. There was a beat of silence. Mina, Kirishima started, eyes narrowing. Who's this? Mina's breath hitched, panic flickering in her eyes. Izuku's heart pounded, 1,000 explanations clawing at his throat, none of them enough. And just like that, the fragile piece shattered. Izuku's heart thundered in his chest, each beat deafening in his ears. Kirishima and Shiro's eyes were fixed on him, suspicion and confusion flickering behind them. Mina's hand was warm in his, but the way her fingers tightened betrayed her nerves. Kirishima's eyes narrowed, crossing his arms. Mina, who's this guy? Mina opened her mouth, stammering. Oh, he's, her gaze darted to Izuku, panic rising. Konshu's dry laugh echoed in Izuku's mind, smug and thoroughly entertained. This is going to be good. Without really thinking, words tumbled out of Mina's mouth in a rush. He's my boyfriend. Silence. Izuku felt his soul briefly leave his body. Kirishima blinked, completely thrown off. Your boyfriend. Shiro arched an eyebrow, eyes narrowing with blatant skepticism. Since when? Mina's eyes widened like a deer caught in headlights. Recently, she squeaked, her voice a pitch too high. Izuku could feel her hand turning clammy in his grip. Kirishima's expression twisted with doubt, eyes flickering between them. And what's his name? Mina froze. The panic radiating off her was almost palpable. Izuku sucked in a breath, fighting the urge to groan. Why does it have to be like this? Konshu chuckled darkly. Oh, this is delicious. Do keep up, boy. Izuku gritted his teeth. He leaned in close, his breath warm against Mina's ear. Just follow my lead, he whispered softly. Mina's eyes darted to him, uncertain but desperate. She gave a small, shaky nod. And before she could say anything else, Izuku pulled her in, his gloved hand cupping her cheek as he pressed his lips to hers. The world seemed to tilt, everything narrowing to that single point of contact, the soft warmth of her lips, the way her breath hitched, how her fingers instinctively clutched at his chest. Mina's mind went blissfully blank, her eyes fluttering closed. Kirishima let out a strangled noise. Shiro coughed violently. Well, okay, then. Izuku pulled back slowly, cheeks burning beneath the shadows of his hood. Mina's eyes were dazed, her face glowing with heat. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Not bad, boy, Konshu drawled, thoroughly amused. At least you're good for something. Izuku fought the urge to tell him to shut up. He cleared his throat, avoiding eye contact with Kirishima and Shiro's stunned expressions. Sorry, but we really have to go, he said quickly, already steering Mina away. They turned the corner in a hurry, Mina still too dazed to resist. The streetlights cast long shadows, the world oddly quiet. For a while, Mina didn't say anything. Izuku snuck a few glances at her, guilt twisting in his gut. Sorry about that, he mumbled, scratching the back of his neck. I just thought it was the quickest way to. Her fingers squeezed his, cutting him off. He looked down, startled. Mina's face was still bright red, but her lips were curved in a soft, almost shy smile. Her eyes glinted with something fond, warm and bright. Izuku's heart did a weird little flip-flop. Don't apologize, she murmured, a bit breathless. I didn't mind. Izuku's face went hot, words failing him. Oh, he managed, voice embarrassingly small. Konshu snorted. Pathetic. Izuku chose to ignore that. They walked in silence for a while, the quiet only occasionally broken by the distant hum of traffic. Mina was unusually quiet, but the way her fingers stayed firmly intertwined with his was reassuring. Her smile was small, but it didn't fade. The night air was cool, the sky a deep, endless black. Izuku slowed to a stop as they reached UA's gates, the imposing walls casting dark shadows across the path. Mina turned to face him, a hint of reluctance in her eyes. So, I guess this is good night? She asked softly. Izuku hesitated. Why yeah, I guess so. His heart sank a bit at the thought of leaving, even if the whole night had been one long, anxiety-inducing mess. He fumbled with his cloak for a moment before pulling out a small necklace, the delicate silver chain catching the moonlight. The charm was an ankh, small but intricately detailed. Izuku held it out, nerves prickling at his skin. Mina blinked. For me, he nodded, swallowing thickly. It's for protection. If you're ever in trouble, just, stick the ankh into the ground, and I'll come find you. Mina's eyes softened, lips parting in surprise. She took the necklace carefully, fingers brushing his. The touch was light, fleeting, but it sent a spark through Izuku's chest. Thank you, she whispered, voice warm and genuine. She beamed at him, eyes glimmering with something that made his pulse stutter. You're really sweet, you know that. Izuku's face flared with heat. I'm not, she giggled, eyes bright. Sure you're not, she teased, already fastening the necklace around her neck. The ankh rested just above her heart, glinting softly. She hesitated for a moment, then leaned up, pressing a soft kiss to his cheek. Izuku went stiff, eyes wide, his brain short-circuiting. Good night, Izuku, she said softly, the corners of her mouth curled into a small, shy smile. He managed a weak, good night, voice cracking slightly. As Mina disappeared through the gates, Izuku let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding, running a shaky hand through his hair. His cheek was still warm where her lips had touched, heart hammering like it wanted to break free. Pathetic, Konshu huffed, though his tone was more amused than anything else. You act like you've never spoken to a girl before. Izuku groaned, burying his face in his gloved hands. Can you not right now? Konshu chuckled darkly. Fine, try not to die on your way home, boy. With a soft sigh, Izuku glanced once more at the Ua gates before pulling his hood up, the suit molding around him with a whisper of magic. The wind tugged at his cape as he vaulted to a nearby rooftop, shadows swallowing him whole. But the warmth stayed, lingering in his chest, spreading to his fingertips. Izuku took a slow breath, letting the night air fill his lungs. His eyes drifted to the moon, pale and steady in the sky, and for a moment, he let himself hope. But that fragile peace shattered instantly when a voice echoed from below, harsh and disbelieving. What the hell was that? Izuku's breath hitched. Below him, half hidden in the shadows, Bakugo stood with wide eyes and a furious scowl, hands clenched at his sides. Izuku's blood ran cold. The night air felt cool against Izuku's skin as he stood in the shadows, his eyes still lingering on Mina as she walked away, her smile a faint memory. For a brief moment, he allowed himself to relax, to just be Izuku Midoriya, not Moon Knight. The tension in his chest lessened, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he almost forgot about the weight of his responsibilities. But that peace was fleeting. A voice, sharp, accusing, familiar, cut through the calm. Well, if it isn't the mighty Moon Knight. Izuku's hand instinctively gripped the staff at his side. No, not now, not here. He turned slowly, forcing himself to breathe in deeply, to center himself. Bakugo was standing a few paces away, his usual angry scowl plastered across his face. You think you're better than me, huh? What kind of hero hides behind a mask, prances around like you're some kind of god? Look at you, another freak trying to play the good guy, thinking you're above everyone else. Izuku clenched his teeth, the words hitting like a punch. Stay calm, Izuku. You can handle this. Just breathe. But Bakugo wasn't stopping. His words became sharper, more venomous. I don't care what your deal is, you freak. You're just like all the other villains, hiding behind some flashy bullshit. Izuku's fists tightened at his sides. The anger burned within him, his body tensing as if it were being pulled in two directions. Calm down, he pleaded with himself, but it was becoming harder to think straight. Please, stay in control. Izuku, you must calm yourself, Konshu said, his voice in Izuku's mind, trying to ground him. Bakugo stepped forward, fists raised, his tone harsh and mocking. You think you can just walk around doing whatever you want, hiding in the shadows, acting all mysterious, you're nothing but a coward. Izuku's breath hitched. His chest tightened with fury. Why does he always do this? Why won't he just stop? Die. Bakugo snarled, throwing the first punch. It was all it took. In an instant, the world seemed to slow, and Izuku felt the pulse of power surge through his body, like a lightning strike that consumed every thought and every breath. No, no, no. Don't lose it. But it was too late. The Ankh flared to life, an overwhelming presence in his chest. Enough. Konshu's voice rang out like thunder. You're going too far, Izuku. Stop. But it was too late. The world went black. Izuku's eyes snapped open, his heart thumping in his chest as the fog of unconsciousness lifted. The world around him was dark, and the first thing he noticed was the thick, metallic scent of blood in the air. What happened? His body felt heavy, his movements sluggish as he tried to sit up. And then he saw him, Bakugo, sprawled on the ground. His face was bruised, his body battered. His breathing was shallow, ragged. Izuku froze. No. No, no. What did I do? His heart lurched in his chest. He didn't know how it had happened, how he'd gone from fighting to this. But as his gaze flickered to Bakugo's battered form, the panic started to set in. Calm down, Izuku. Konshu's voice cut through his mind again, cold and unyielding. You're back in control, aren't you? Izuku swallowed hard, trying to steady his breath. His hands trembled, and his heart pounded against his ribs. I didn't mean to. I lost control. He may have deserved this, but not like this. The god's voice was more insistent now. Focus. You have to fix this. Izuku stood slowly, his legs wobbling beneath him, as the reality of the situation sank in. I need to get him out of here. He bent down, lifting Bakugo with shaking arms. He could barely focus, his thoughts a tangled mess of guilt and fear. The weight of his actions pressed down on him like a boulder. With one final glance at the unconscious form of the boy who had taunted him, mocked him, and pushed him to the edge, Izuku used his magic to slip past the security of Ua, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. At Ua, Izuku entered Recovery Girl's office silently, setting Bakugo on one of the cots gently. He stood for a moment, hands trembling as he pulled out a scrap of paper. He scribbled a note. Your students better stay out of my way. I won't kill a kid, but I will hurt them if I have to. He placed the note beside Bakugo. The note was half-hearted, honestly. He couldn't just tell them he attacked a student unprompted, so he had to make one up. That would suffice. He then stepped back, staring at the boy one last time. I didn't want this. His thoughts were shattered, and the guilt gnawed at him like an insatiable hunger. Without another word, he turned and walked away, his mind heavy with regret. The next morning, Izuku was sitting in his apartment, staring at his phone. The screen lit up, and his heart sank as he saw Mina's name. Izuku, what the hell happened? I saw the news. What did you do to Bakugo? She demanded, the concern in her voice clear. Izuku rubbed his forehead, trying to steady his thoughts. I lost control. I didn't mean to. The Ankh, sometimes it takes over, and Mina was quiet for a moment, then her voice softened. I know, Izuku. I know you're trying to control it. But you have to. You can't keep losing yourself. You will lose everything if you do. Izuku's heart twisted, guilt flooding him again. I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I don't know what happened. You're still you, Izuku. But you have to learn to control it, Mina said, her voice firm. We'll figure this out together. You're not alone in this. He swallowed hard. Thanks, Mina. I just need to get better. I can't keep doing this. There was a long pause before Mina spoke again, her tone softening. Izuku, can we go out again? Maybe tonight. I think you need a break. Izuku let out a soft breath of relief, his heart warming at her words. I'd love that. I really would. Mina stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the hem of her outfit for what felt like the 100th time. She had a date tonight, an actual date, and her heart raced just thinking about it. Tsuyu and Hagakure were helping her get ready, chatting about this and that, but Mina couldn't stop fidgeting. It wasn't every day you went out with someone you liked, someone who wasn't just a friend. Tsuyu raised an eyebrow, glancing at Mina's outfit with a sly grin. So, this mystery date of yours, who is it? Mina threw her hands up dramatically, her face flushing. I can't tell you. It's a surprise. Hagakure giggled, her voice playful. Ooh, I bet it's someone special. He must be, to have you acting all shy like this. I'm not shy, Mina insisted, though her voice betrayed her. It's a big deal, okay. I want to make it special. She adjusted the bow on her shirt and checked her reflection one more time. Besides, I'm already freaking out. What if I mess this up? Suyu gave her a reassuring smile. You're Mina, you'll be fine. Just have fun and be yourself. With that, Mina took a deep breath and let out a sigh. You're right, I just need to relax. She smiled, her nerves settling just a little. She was excited, and maybe that was enough. Izuku's heart was pounding. It had been a while since he'd felt this nervous. Standing in front of his mirror, he adjusted his shirt one more time, tugging at the collar as if he could somehow make himself look more presentable. He had prepared for this moment in his head 1,000 times, but now that it was here, his mind had gone blank. What do I even say? He muttered to himself, pacing in his room. His staff rested against the wall, untouched. He had to keep it together. This was supposed to be a date, a time for them to have fun together. But all he could think about was how to keep from embarrassing himself. Come on, Konshu, you've been through this, right? Give me some advice, Izuku begged, rubbing his temples in frustration. From deep within him, Konshu's voice boomed, advice. My dear boy, in ancient Egypt, I would simply summon the girl to my temple, offer her a lavish gift, and... No, not that. I don't need lavish gifts, I need help with words. Izuku exclaimed, his hands running through his hair. Konshu chuckled in his head, as though this was the most amusing thing he had ever heard. Ah, words. In my time, we spoke with the poetry of the gods. I could recite entire tales of conquest and love in mere moments. I'm not you, Konshu. I can't talk like that. Izuku groaned, pacing again. I just want to tell her how much she means to me, without sounding like an idiot. You will find your words, boy. But, remember, the most important thing is confidence. Show her your power, your strength. Konshu's voice had taken on a more serious tone. Show her that you are worth her time. You must let her see you as more than just a man, let her see you as a hero. Izuku nodded slightly, but his stomach was still in knots. I know, but how do I even say it? Konshu's voice softened, teasing. Perhaps you should show her the moon. In my time, nothing was more romantic than standing beneath the stars and reciting your deepest feelings to your lover. Try it. Maybe the moon itself will offer its approval. Izuku's eyes widened. The moon. I can do that. You know, I might just do that. His anxiety turned into determination as he looked at the clock. It was time. Mina's park. Mina sat on the park bench, anxiously checking her phone one more time, hoping that Izuku wasn't going to bail on her. She'd been sitting there for a few minutes, but with the way the night was going, it felt like an eternity. The sky above her was clear, the stars twinkling brightly. The moon hung high, its silvery light bathing the entire park in a peaceful glow. She loved the stars. She loved space. It always felt like there was so much out there, so much to learn, so many mysteries to uncover. And, for tonight, it felt like she was floating in the middle of a dream. Mina's heart skipped a beat as she turned, and there he was. Izuku was standing just a few feet away, looking a little out of breath but his face breaking into a warm, familiar smile. Hey, he said, walking over to her. Sorry I'm late. Mina smiled back, trying to hide her excitement. It's fine. I'm just happy you're here. Izuku took a seat next to her, his nervous energy palpable but somehow endearing. I'm glad you're okay with this, he said quietly, his gaze dropping to the ground. Mina tilted her head, giving him a soft, reassuring smile. I've been looking forward to this for a while, you know. Izuku glanced at her, eyes wide, and the smallest smile crept onto his face. Yeah, me too. Ready? Izuku asked, his voice slightly shaky, though his hand was firm and reassuring as he offered it to her. Mina blinked, her curiosity piqued. Ready for what? She asked, her eyes narrowing with a playful grin. Izuku smiled shyly, his eyes flicking up to the sky. You'll see. Trust me. Before she could even process his words, the air around them seemed to shift. A cool breeze swept through the park, and Mina gasped as the stars above them seemed to flicker in place. Izuku closed his eyes briefly, and with a deep breath, he whispered something she didn't quite catch. And then it happened. The ground beneath their feet shifted, and suddenly, the world around them disappeared. A flash of blinding white light engulfed them, and for a moment, Mina thought she had gone blind. Her heart raced in her chest, and when the light faded, she found herself standing on the surface of the moon. She blinked, eyes wide in disbelief, her breath hitching. Izuku, is this the moon? Izuku smiled, a soft, apologetic look in his eyes. I know it's a little unexpected, but I wanted to show you something special. Mina spun around, her mind struggling to catch up with what her eyes were telling her. The earth hung in the distance, a beautiful swirl of blue and white against the black canvas of space. The silence of the void was almost overwhelming, but somehow, it was perfect. The gravity was different here, weightless, but the air. They didn't need oxygen here. The Ankh had made it all possible. I can't believe it, Mina whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. This is amazing. Izuku's eyes softened as he looked at her, his usual nervousness flickering in his expression. I thought, since you love space so much, you should see it up close. This is the least I could do. The moon has always been special to me, and now, it's special for you, too. Mina's heart fluttered as she looked at him. There was something magical about this, something that made her chest ache in the most wonderful way. Izuku was always doing things to surprise her, to show her that he cared. But this was different. She smiled at him, her voice filled with warmth. Izuku, this is incredible. You didn't have to do this, but I'm so glad you did. Izuku hesitated for a moment, then stepped closer to her, his gaze dropping to the ground, as if unsure how to say what was on his mind. Mina, I've been thinking about this for a long time. You've always been there for me, supporting me when I needed it. You've always been a light in my life. His voice trailed off, and he took a deep breath, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for hers. And I just need you to know that. I care about you, more than I've ever cared about anyone. I don't know how to explain it, but being around you makes me feel like I can breathe for the first time. And I don't want to keep hiding my feelings anymore. Mina's eyes softened, her heart skipping a beat. The night sky around them seemed to fade into the background, leaving only the two of them, Izuku, standing before her, raw and vulnerable. Izuku, she whispered, squeezing his hand. You don't have to hide anything from me. He swallowed hard, his voice trembling with emotion. Mina, will you be my girlfriend? Mina's breath caught in her throat. She had been waiting for him to say those words, hoping that he would finally take the leap. But hearing him say it here, on the surface of the moon, there was something about the moment that made it all feel so much more real. Yes, she said softly, her voice filled with affection. Yes, I will. Izuku's face lit up with the brightest smile she had ever seen. He pulled her into a hug, and for a moment, the weightlessness of the moon didn't matter. It was just the two of them, surrounded by stars, with nothing else in the world to worry about. When they pulled away, Izuku leaned in, his gaze soft and full of affection. I've wanted to say that for so long, he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. Mina smiled and met him halfway, her lips pressing gently against his. The kiss was sweet, full of the promise of something new, something beautiful. It felt like the whole universe had aligned for this moment. For a long moment, they stayed there, wrapped in the silence of the cosmos, before they finally pulled away. Izuku was still smiling, his hand gently brushing her hair back from her face. Thank you, he whispered, his voice full of gratitude. Before Mina could respond, a familiar voice boomed from nowhere, breaking the peaceful silence. Ah, how touching. A kiss under the moonlight. You two are really out here making this more dramatic than it needs to be. Izuku groaned, his face flushing with embarrassment. Konshu, seriously, can't you just let us have a moment? Konshu's voice chuckled in his mind, a moment. Boy, I gave you this moment. It's called the moon. Don't forget it. Mina laughed softly, her heart full of warmth at the sight of Izuku's embarrassed but happy expression. Looks like your god is never too far away, huh? Izuku let out a frustrated sigh but couldn't help the smile that tugged at his lips. Yeah, I guess not. Konshu's voice rang out once more. You're welcome, boy. You owe me one. And remember, love on the moon is quite dramatic. Mina laughed out loud now, shaking her head. Your god has a weird sense of humor, but I think it's kind of funny. Izuku's face was still bright red, but the smile on his face never faded. With his hand holding hers, he looked out at the earth, the moon, and the stars, realizing that no matter what, this moment, this beautiful, surreal moment, was something he would never forget. And, as they stood there together, beneath the stars and above the world, he knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. Mina stretched out on the grass, her eyes half closed as she soaked in the warmth of the sun. The park was quiet, only the soft rustle of leaves and the distant chirping of birds breaking the silence. Beside her, Izuku leaned back against a tree, his eyes flicking between the sky and the way the sunlight glinted off Mina's hair. Moments like this, peaceful and unhurried, felt rare, and he found himself wishing they could last just a little longer. Mina cracked one eye open, a mischievous grin playing at her lips. You're staring, Midori. Izuku's face flushed, and he nearly choked on air. I wasn't. I just. She laughed, a bright, melodic sound that had his heart stumbling over itself. Relax, I'm kidding. Mina nudged his leg with her foot, eyes warm. I like it. He managed a shy smile, the tips of his ears still pink. Sorry, you're just beautiful, amazing, the coolest girlfriend ever, she teased, propping herself up on her elbows. All of the above, he mumbled, barely audible, but it was enough to have Mina grinning wide. For a moment, they lapsed back into comfortable silence, watching clouds drift lazily by. But Mina's eyes narrowed thoughtfully, her fingers absent-mindedly tugging at a blade of grass. Hey, she started, voice casual but carrying a hint of uncertainty. The sports festival's coming up soon. Izuku perked up, glancing at her with a mix of curiosity and concern. Yeah, are you nervous about it? A bit, she admitted, her eyes shifting to the sky. I mean, it's a huge deal. If I want to prove I've got what it takes, I can't just do okay. I have to win. She paused, biting her lip before sitting up fully, her gaze turning serious. That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. Izuku tilted his head, the concern deepening. What is it? Mina took a breath, her eyes locking onto his with surprising intensity. I need your help. You and Konshu. His eyes widened. Oh, our help. You've been getting stronger. Way stronger than any of us, Mina said, her voice firm. If I'm going to win, I can't just rely on what I've learned at UA. I need real training, the kind that'll push me past my limits. And who better to help than my badass vigilante boyfriend and his ancient god? Izuku's mouth opened and closed a few times, words failing him. I mean, if you really want to, I'd be happy to help. I just don't know if. Oh, come on, Mina grinned, poking his cheek. We both know you're an amazing teacher. Besides, if Konshu trained you, he can train me, right? As if on cue, the air around them seemed to chill slightly, and a familiar voice echoed in Izuku's mind, dripping with smug amusement. Ah, so the girl wishes to learn, Konshu drawled, his tone half teasing, half curious. A bold request. I like her spirit. Izuku sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Please don't encourage her. Mina laughed. That's a yes, right? Izuku's exasperation melted into a soft smile. Yeah, we'll help. The next few weeks were a blur of grueling training sessions and late-night sparring. Izuku quickly learned that while Mina's quirk was powerful, her real strength lay in her adaptability and raw determination. She absorbed every lesson: how to anticipate an opponent's moves, how to strike with precision, how to turn her speed and agility into a weapon. Konshu was, unsurprisingly, a demanding instructor, but Mina handled his blunt critiques with impressive grace, often throwing a sassy comment or two back his way, which Izuku couldn't help but admire. They trained by daylight and fought crime by night, Mina wearing a makeshift disguise that hid her identity but not her growing confidence. She was getting faster, sharper, her movements smoother and more controlled. Izuku watched with a mix of awe and pride as she took down opponents twice her size without hesitation. But it wasn't just her strength that grew. Between sparring matches and crime fighting, there were stolen moments, quick kisses, quiet laughs, whispered confessions in the dark. Izuku found himself smiling more, the darkness that had hung over him since his mother's death lifting just a little. By the time the festival was only a few days away, Mina's acid was strong enough to melt through steel in seconds, and her reflexes were sharp enough to dodge almost anything thrown her way. Her confidence was undeniable, fierce and untamed, and Izuku couldn't take his eyes off her. Standing atop a building overlooking the city, Izuku's eyes followed Mina's figure as she practiced with a target dummy below. Her movements were quick, precise, acid spraying with a level of control that would have been unthinkable weeks ago. Not bad, Konshu mused, his tone almost approving. The girl has potential. Izuku chuckled. She's amazing, isn't she? There was a pause, then a low chuckle from the god. Careful, boy, your affections are showing. Izuku's cheeks turned pink, but he didn't deny it. I want her to do well. She's worked so hard for this. She will, Konshu said, his voice softer than usual. You've given her the tools. Now she must prove herself. Izuku's eyes never left her, pride swelling in his chest. She's going to knock this festival out. And when she does, Konshu chuckled darkly, the world will finally see what a monster she truly is. Izuku frowned, though he couldn't hide the smirk tugging at his lips. Could you not call my girlfriend a monster? A scoff. It's a compliment. Izuku laughed, the sound light and unburdened. As he watched Mina train below, fierce and untamed under the moonlight, he knew one thing for certain. She was ready. The UA Sports Festival was a spectacle unlike any other. The roar of the crowd echoed through the stadium, a constant surge of energy that seemed to rattle the very ground beneath their feet. Flags and banners waved in the wind, painted with the emblems of heroes both old and new, as students from every year gathered to prove themselves. For Mina, it was a lot to take in. Izuku and Konshu had been preparing her for this, weeks of brutal training that blurred the line between practical and outright insane. Running rooftops at midnight, hand-to-hand combat in alleyways, and quirk control exercises that left her gasping for breath. It was exhausting, thrilling, and far more intense than anything UA had thrown at her before. But the results were undeniable. Her reflexes were sharper, her movements swifter, and for the first time, Mina felt like she could actually win. From the stands, Izuku watched with a mix of nerves and pride, his gloved hands gripping the railing. Konshu's voice, deep and sardonic, rumbled in his mind. She's doing well, the god mused. Your methods were unorthodox, but effective. Izuku's lips twitched with a smile. Told you. The first round was a brutal obstacle course designed to weed out the weak. Cement pillars, landmines, and zero-pointers turned the track into a war zone. Mina darted between traps with the precision of a dancer, her acid quirk melting obstacles in her path. She didn't place first. Todoroki's ice made sure of that, but she was fast enough to secure a spot in the next round. The cavalry battle that followed was chaos incarnate. Teams scrambled and clashed, quirks flashing in all directions. Mina, leading her team with a determined grin, wove through the chaos with relentless energy. Every time a rival team lunged, her reflexes kicked in, acid slicks tripping opponents, barriers deflecting attacks. By the end, her team was battered but still standing. Izuku couldn't help the proud grin that stretched across his face. Konshu scoffed. You're grinning like a fool. She's doing great, Izuku shot back, eyes never leaving the field. Then came the one-on-one battles, the real test. Mina's first opponent was Zero, whose tape quirk could have posed a real problem. But Mina was faster now, more deliberate in her strikes. She moved like she'd been doing this her whole life, each step a lesson learned from late-night sparring with Izuku. A well-placed acid shot severed Zero's tape mid-swing, and a decisive roundhouse ended it. The crowd erupted. Izuku released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. One by one, Mina tore through her opponents. Tokiyami, with his dark shadow, forced her on the defensive, shadows lunging and snapping with lethal intent. But she adapted, coating the ground with acid to limit his movement. The fight was brutal, back and forth until, with a final burst of speed, she broke through. By the time Mina faced Bakugo in the finals, she was exhausted, breath coming in short, ragged gasps. But Izuku had seen that look in her eyes before, the one that said she wasn't done, not yet. Bakugo's explosions tore through the arena, relentless and overwhelming. But Mina's training held. Her dodges were tight, efficient. A mid-air twist barely escaped a blast, and a counter-strike sent acid sizzling across Bakugo's arm. It was a battle of endurance and wits. Bakugo's explosions were stronger, but Mina's adaptability and sheer willpower kept her in the fight. A final, desperate gambit, an acid slide into a direct strike, caught Bakugo off guard, and the arena fell silent as he hit the ground. The referee's call was almost drowned out by the cheers. Mina had won. Izuku's heart swelled, a grin breaking free. Konshu's chuckle resonated in his mind. Perhaps there's hope for her yet. And as Mina looked up at the stands, eyes scanning for that familiar green-haired figure, Izuku knew this was only the beginning. Izuku had heard a lot of unexpected things from Konshu, but this one might have been the strangest yet. "I am going on a date," the moon god announced, his voice carrying its usual regal weight. Izuku, who had just been enjoying a quiet moment on the rooftop, choked on his energy drink. "What?" Mina, who had just arrived to drop off some snacks, paused mid-step. "Hold up. Rewind that. Did you just say a date?" Konshu huffed, the shadows around him shifting in a way that somehow conveyed mild exasperation. "Yes, a date. Do you find this concept so unfathomable?" "Yes," Izuku and Mina blurted at the same time. Konshu crossed his arms. "I shall ignore your mortal ignorance. Even gods have desires, and I, Konshu, have deemed it time to pursue the company of one who is suitable." Mina leaned in, eyes sparkling with mischief. "Ooh, who's the lucky lady?" Konshu lifted his head with the grandiosity of a ruler making a decree. "Bastet, the goddess of protection, joy, and feline grace." There was a beat of silence before Izuku muttered, "You're trying to date a cat goddess." "She is much more than a mere cat goddess," Konshu grumbled. "She is a warrior, a deity of celebration and strength. I have long admired her poise and power." Mina nudged Izuku, whispering, "He's totally smitten." Izuku groaned, rubbing his temples. "Okay, I don't even know where to start with this." "Why now?" Konshu's cloak rippled as he shifted. "Because," he said, "it is time." "That's not an answer," Izuku deadpanned. Konshu ignored him, instead straightening his form. "I require assistance." Mina gasped. "Wait, you need our help." Izuku smirked. "Oh, this is gonna be good." Konshu, despite his divine might, was utterly terrible at preparing for a date. The first issue, attire. Izuku had suggested something simple, maybe even a suit, you know, classic. But Konshu had his own ideas. "What do you think?" Konshu declared as he materialized a shimmering white robe lined with silver moon phases and a flowing black cloak, its ends dissolving into wisps of starlight. Mina squinted. It's giving, ancient doomsday prophet." Izuku winced. "Yeah, it's kinda screaming, I sentence you to judgment, instead of, hey, let's grab some dinner." Konshu waved a hand dismissively. Mortals know nothing of divine fashion. Next came conversation preparation. "Okay," Izuku started, crossing his arms. "Let's practice some basic talking points. Say Bastet compliments you. What do you say back?" Konshu lifted his head proudly. "Yes, I am glorious. Thank you for recognizing my divine presence." Mina facepalmed. No, that's not how flirting works." Izuku sighed. "Try something a little less self-worshipping. Like, if she says you look nice, just say, 'Thank you, you look wonderful too.'" Konshu made a grumbling sound. "Why must I lessen my grandeur?" "Because you want another date, right?" Mina pointed out. Konshu was silent for a moment before muttering, "Fine." Bastet's temple was breathtaking. A grand oasis of gold and black marble, illuminated by floating lanterns that cast a soft glow over the intricate carvings of feline figures and celestial constellations. The air was perfumed with the scent of lotus flowers, and a dozen sleek black cats lounged near the entrance, their eyes gleaming with otherworldly intelligence. Konshu stepped forward with practiced grace, his cloak billowing behind him. He had rehearsed this moment, he was ready. Bastet, reclining elegantly on a throne of plush cushions, regarded him with amused golden eyes. "Konshu," she purred, stretching like a lazy cat. "This is a surprise." Konshu bowed his head slightly. "Bastet, I deemed it appropriate to make a social call." Her smirk widened. "A social call? From the ever-distant god of the moon? Now that is interesting." Konshu straightened, exuding as much composure as possible. "I thought it might be agreeable for us to share an evening together." speak of divine matters, or simply enjoy one another's company. Bastet leaned forward, chin resting on her palm. Are you asking me on a date, Konshu? Konshu hesitated. Would that be undesirable? She chuckled, standing gracefully. It would be entertaining. Very well, moon god. You have my attention. Bastet led Konshu through the winding, moonlit streets of Cairo, a hidden part of the mortal world where gods could walk unnoticed. The golden glow of lanterns flickered along the ancient pathways, and the distant sound of music floated through the air. They settled at a small, tucked-away cafe, where Bastet ordered for them tea infused with spices and honeyed pastries that she ate with delicate enjoyment. Konshu, meanwhile, sat stiffly across from her, unsure of what to do. Mortals drink tea. Was he supposed to drink tea? Bastet took a sip and raised an eyebrow. You look like you're contemplating battle instead of enjoying yourself. Konshu exhaled, forcing himself to relax, just a little. I am not well versed in this. She smiled. I can tell. They spoke of ancient times and mortal affairs, of gods long faded and heroes newly risen. Bastet teased, Konshu countered, and somewhere between the banter and the quiet appreciation of the night, the evening became pleasant. Konshu shifted uncomfortably as he stared at the cup of tea in front of him. It was a delicate ceramic thing, steam curling lazily from its surface, and yet he looked at it as if it were some kind of alien object. Bastet, across from him, sipped hers with a lazy grace, her golden eyes gleaming with barely restrained amusement. You can drink, you know, she teased, setting her cup down. Even gods can indulge. Konshu exhaled sharply, straightening his already straight posture. I do not indulge. Bastet smirked. No. Then what do you call this? You came all this way, asked me out, and now you're pretending this isn't a date. Konshu stiffened slightly. It is a social engagement, he corrected. One between two deities of considerable stature. Bastet leaned forward, resting her chin on her palm. That's adorable. You're trying so hard to sound important. Konshu growled. I am important. She chuckled, flicking her fingers in a dismissive wave. Of course you are, mighty moon god. You're just not as intimidating as you think. Konshu's cloak rippled in indignation, but before he could launch into some grand retort about how he was absolutely terrifying and she should be swooning at his presence, Bastet shifted topics. So, she mused, eyes twinkling. How has the whole Moon Knight business been treating you? I heard you finally found a decent avatar. Konshu's irritation melted ever so slightly as he thought of Izuku. He is capable, strong-willed, devoted to justice. He paused. At times, insufferable. Bastet laughed, the sound rich and melodic. Sounds like you picked well, then. Konshu grumbled something under his breath but didn't argue. For the next while, they actually talked. It was strange, pleasant, even. The usual edge of divine politics and celestial battles faded into the background. Instead, it was discussions of how the world had changed, how mortals were adapting, and the oddities of modern civilization. And for the first time in a long time, Konshu wasn't brooding. After leaving the cafe, the two gods wandered along the Nile, the river gleaming under the glow of the full moon. The streets were quiet, the city alive but distant, as if this moment belonged only to them. Bastet walked with an effortless ease, her hands behind her back, her eyes scanning the horizon. I must say, Konshu, she murmured. I didn't expect you to actually enjoy yourself tonight. Konshu scoffed. I am fully capable of enjoying things. She arched a brow. Oh, because I think this is the first time in centuries that you haven't been threatening someone. He huffed. Exaggeration. She smirked. Not really. Konshu hesitated for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the river's shimmering surface. It has been a long time since I have taken part in anything beyond my duty. Bastet's teasing expression softened, just a little. Well then, maybe you should do it more often. They stood in silence for a moment. It was oddly peaceful, standing there together, watching the city in a rare moment of calm. Konshu, emboldened by the quiet, decided to take a chance. Would you consider doing this again sometime? Bastet turned to him, golden eyes glimmering. Perhaps. She leaned in slightly, voice dropping to a whisper. If you promise not to try and block out the sun again. Konshu grumbled, shifting uncomfortably. That was a tactical decision. She laughed, flicking his shoulder lightly. Sure, Sure, you'll just have to convince me next time. With a final smirk, Bastet's form shimmered and disappeared into the night, leaving Konshu alone beneath his own moon. Back at the apartment, Izuku and Mina were sprawled out on the couch, watching a movie when a familiar whoosh of darkness announced Konshu's return. Izuku lazily turned his head. "Oh hey, you're back. Sue, how'd it go?" Konshu straightened, trying to radiate pure dignity. "It was a successful engagement." Mina sat up excitedly. "Wait, does that mean second date?" Konshu hesitated for a beat too long. "That is yet to be determined." Izuku grinned. "Oh my god, she liked you." Mina gasped dramatically. "Konshu has a crush. I do not." Konshu snapped, his entire presence flickering in indignation. Izuku smirked. "You totally do. I am done with this conversation," Konshu declared, turning in a dramatic swirl of his cloak. "Mock me at your own peril, mortals." And with that, he vanished into the night. Izuku and Mina shared a look before bursting into laughter. "We are never letting him live this down," Mina giggled. Izuku chuckled, shaking his head. "Nope." And with that, they settled back into their cozy evening, already looking forward to Konshu's next romantic misadventure. The streets were alive with the soft hum of city life, street vendors calling out their specials, neon signs flickering in the distance, and the occasional laughter of passing couples. Mina grinned as she walked alongside Izuku, practically bouncing with excitement as she pointed at various food stalls in the marketplace. "I'm telling you, you have to try this, Midori," she said, grabbing his wrist and dragging him toward a stall selling sizzling skewers of seasoned beef. Izuku smiled behind the black medical mask he wore, letting himself be pulled along. Moments like these were rare, moments where he wasn't Moon Knight, where there were no criminals to hunt or shadows to stalk. Just him and Mina, being normal. Or, at least, as normal as they could be. Because Izuku wasn't relaxed, he never truly was. Even as he laughed at one of Mina's jokes, he felt it. The presence. A disturbance in the rhythm of the night. Someone was following them. His senses sharpened as he subtly checked the reflections in nearby windows. A barely noticeable indentation in the snow-dusted sidewalk. The faintest shift of a shadow where there shouldn't be one. Hagakure. She had been tailing Mina for some time now. Probably since she had left Ua. Izuku's mind worked quickly. She must have grown suspicious, followed her, and now she was trying to confirm something. It was a problem. A big one. But before he could address it, a sudden clink of a blade being drawn in an alleyway to their right made his stomach drop. "All right, lovebirds," a gruff voice sneered. Izuku turned just in time to see a tall, ragged man step from the alleyway, knife glinting in the dim light. His clothes were worn, his fingers twitching like an addict in withdrawal. Mina's eyes narrowed, stepping forward. "Oh, buddy, you picked the wrong couple too." Before she could finish her sentence, Izuku moved. He didn't hesitate. He didn't stop to analyze. His instincts took over. Moon Knight took over. In a blink, his suit wrapped around him in a swirl of white energy. Mina barely had time to process what was happening before Izuku closed the distance. One punch to the wrist, disarming the thug. A spin, a knee to the stomach. Before the man could even fall, Izuku grabbed him by the collar, slammed him into the alleyway wall, and let him drop, out cold. Mina, arms crossed, whistled. Damn, romantic and efficient. But that wasn't what had Izuku's focus. It was the sharp gasp from behind them. Izuku turned just in time to see the faintest shimmer in the air, a barely there silhouette standing frozen at the alley's entrance. Hagakure. She had seen everything. What? Hagakure's voice cracked as she took a stumbling step back. Izuku moved on instinct, his body launching toward her. Wait, but Hagakure was fast. She bolted, nearly tripping over herself as she turned heel and sprinted toward Ua. Izuku cursed under his breath and took off after her. "Mina, go home," he shouted as he leapt onto the side of a building, scaling it in seconds. "Like hell I'm okay. Yeah, you're way faster," Mina muttered as she saw Izuku disappear over the rooftops in a blur of white. Izuku was fast, inhumanly fast, but Hagakure was invisible. She ducked between people, zigzagging through the narrowest paths she could find, her breath coming in sharp, panicked gasps. This wasn't just some conspiracy theory. Mina was dating Moon Knight. Moon Knight, the vigilante Aizawa had been chasing. And she had proof. Izuku pushed his body to the limit, his cape snapping behind him as he vaulted across rooftops. He couldn't let her reach Aizawa. He couldn't. She slipped through the front gates of Ua. Izuku dove. He hit the ground in a roll, coming up running, his heart slamming against his ribs. He could still stop her. He could still. The classroom door slammed open. 5. The outcome. The secret exposed. Aizawa, half asleep in his chair, barely had time to lift his head before Hagakure burst into the room, panting. Aizawa-sensei. I know who he is. Aizawa's eyes immediately sharpened. He sat up straight. Who? Hagakure gulped for air, heart hammering. Mina. She's dating Moon Knight. A silence as heavy as a boulder crushed the room. Aizawa's face didn't change, but his entire presence shifted. His eyes met hers, sharp and calculating. Are you certain? He asked, his voice dangerously low. Hagakure nodded frantically. I saw it. He transformed right in front of me. Aizawa leaned back, rubbing his temples. Damn it. Right at that moment, the wind howled outside, and Hagakure gasped when she saw a figure in white land just outside the classroom window. Moon Knight. Izuku stood there, breathing heavy, his mask unreadable. Hagakure froze. Aizawa slowly turned his head to the window, locking eyes with his most elusive target. For a moment, no one moved. Then Izuku did the only thing he could do. He turned and ran. Aizawa's chair scraped against the floor as he stood immediately. Hagakure, stay here. And then, Eraserhead took off after him. Morning. Mina sat in the cold, sterile interrogation room, her arms crossed, posture tense. She wasn't restrained, but the weight of the situation was pressing down on her like a boulder. Across from her, Aizawa stood with his usual unreadable expression, arms folded. Beside him, Nezu sat atop the desk, his small, fuzzy form betraying nothing of the sharp intellect behind those beady eyes. The air was heavy. Mina, Aizawa said, voice steady. Let's not waste time. We know you're involved with Moon Knight. We know you've been meeting him. And after last night, we know exactly who he is to you. Mina didn't flinch. She met his gaze head on. I don't know what you're talking about. Nezu sighed, stirring his cup of tea. We don't want to punish you, Ashido, he said, voice gentle but firm. We want to help you. But you have to give us something. Mina clenched her fists. I don't have anything to give. Aizawa's stare was unwavering. He's a killer, Mina. A vigilante. You know that, don't you? Her jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Nezu's voice softened. We understand that you care about him. But this path defending him, hiding him will only make things worse for you. Mina bit her lip. She knew that. She knew all of it. But she also knew that Izuku wasn't some heartless murderer. He fought for something real. And she wasn't about to betray him. Aizawa exhaled heavily. All right, he said. Then until you're ready to talk, you'll stay in a holding cell. Mina stayed silent as they escorted her out of the room. Holding cells. Nightfall. Mina sat on the small cot in the dimly lit holding room, staring at the ceiling. It was quiet. Too quiet. Then a sharp crash from outside. Her head snapped up just as the lights flickered. Something was happening. And then, as if summoned by the thought itself, the door to her cell clicked open. Mina turned, her heart leaping, as a familiar white-cloaked figure stepped inside. Moon Knight. Izuku. He stood in the doorway, his mask reflecting the dim light, his presence overwhelming. Izuku. Mina started, but he lifted a hand. No time. His voice was low and urgent. I took care of the guards, but we have to move. Now. Mina hesitated, glancing past him. Did you? They're fine, Izuku assured her. I didn't kill them. She let out a breath of relief. Then he stepped forward and offered her his hand. Mina, he said, voice steady. I need you to make a choice. Her breath caught in her throat. You can stay here, Izuku continued. Tell them everything. They'll let you go. You'll be safe. He exhaled. I won't be mad. Her fingers curled into fists. Or, Izuku took another step closer. You can come with me. We'll be on the run. No turning back. But together, we'll make a difference. His voice dropped lower. You'll enforce Konshu's will alongside me. Mina's heart pounded. This was it. Her last chance to walk away. She thought about her life. About Ua. About the future she could have had. Then she thought about Izuku. About the way he fought, the way he believed in something bigger than himself. She knew what she wanted. Mina took his hand. I'm with you. Izuku's grip tightened. Then let's go. Mina's house. One last goodbye. They moved quickly through the city, slipping through alleys and shadows. Izuku led the way, every movement controlled, calculated. When they reached Mina's home, she hesitated outside her bedroom window. Are you sure about this? Izuku asked quietly. Mina didn't answer. Instead, she climbed inside, grabbed a piece of paper, and began to write. Mom, Dad, I love you. I always will. But there's something I have to do, something I can't ignore anymore. I know this will hurt you, and I hate that. But please, believe me when I say I'm doing this because I believe in it. Because I believe in him. I'm not running away. I'm choosing my path. And no matter what, I'll always be your daughter. Take care of each other. And don't wait up. Love, Mina. She folded the note, placing it carefully on her desk. Then, without looking back, she climbed back out the window and took Izuku's hand again. The rooftop. A new beginning. The city sprawled beneath them, lights flickering in the vast darkness. Mina exhaled, the weight of her choice settling on her shoulders. She was really doing this. There was no going back. Izuku stood beside her, his mask unreadable, but she could feel his presence solid, unwavering. Then, from behind them, Konshu's deep, amused voice rumbled through the night. I could always use a second avatar. Mina turned to look at him. The god loomed over them, his glowing eyes piercing through the darkness. She felt a shiver run down her spine. But she didn't look away. Instead, she smirked. I'm listening. And with that, the night swallowed them whole. Oh yeah baby, I'm calling the Fist of Konshu Season 1 complete. Will Mina become a second Moon Knight? Will Izuku find out what happened to his mother? Will Konshu finally get some bitches? Find out in the next season of Fist of Konshu. The air in Class 1A was different today. Heavier. The usual morning chatter was missing, as if some unspoken tension hung over them, pressing down like an invisible force. Aizawa stepped into the room, looking more exhausted than usual, but there was something harder about him today, like the words he was about to say carried more weight than any lesson he could teach. He stood in front of them, arms crossed. Mina Ashido is gone. Silence. A pause too long, too suffocating. Then, what? Hiroshima's voice cracked through the quiet. Aizawa didn't sugarcoat it. She left Ua last night. She is no longer a student here. The words hit the class like a hammer. Hiroshima shot up from his seat. No way. She wouldn't just leave. His voice was desperate, almost pleading for Aizawa to tell him this was a mistake. Kaminari blinked rapidly, his hands gripping the desk. Wait. No. Wait. Like, left. Like, not coming back left. Jiro's hand clenched around her headphone jack. That doesn't make sense. Mina's not the type to just go. Iida stood stiffly, fists shaking at his sides. If she left, there must be a way to bring her back. Uraraka sat frozen, fingers curled into the fabric of her skirt, holding herself together. Todoroki remained silent, his gaze sharp and unreadable. Bakugo, sitting in the back, had a scowl so deep it looked carved into his face. His teeth gritted audibly. Aizawa met their gazes, firm and unyielding. This was her choice. No. All eyes turned to Kirishima again, his voice shaky. His fists trembled. No. That's bull. We would have known. She wouldn't just. She would have told us. Aizawa's gaze softened slightly, but his words remained steady. She didn't tell you, because she knew you would try to stop her. Silence. Why? Jiro's voice was quieter now, almost afraid of the answer. Aizawa exhaled. Because she left with Moon Knight. The room snapped into chaos. You're kidding. Kaminari's voice cracked. That guy. No way. Why would she? Bakugo didn't shout. He didn't ask. His chair scraped loudly against the floor as he stormed out of the room. Nobody tried to stop him. Aizawa let the noise continue for a moment before cutting it down with a single look. That's all I'll say on the matter. Mina Ashido is gone. She is with Moon Knight now. And as of this morning. The words hung heavy in the air. They are officially fugitives. A crumpled letter sat between Mr. and Mrs. Ashido on the kitchen table. Her mother's shoulders shook, her fingers pressed against the paper, as if willing it to change, to say something different. Something better. I love you. I always will. But this is something I have to do. Please don't wait up. Her father sat stiffly, his hands clasped together, elbows on the table, as he stared through the letter, through the wall, through everything. Neither of them spoke, and then the doorbell rang. When they opened it, Aizawa and Nezu stood there. Mrs. Ashido's breath hitched. Did you find her? Aizawa didn't answer immediately. Nezu spoke first, his voice quiet. We know where she is. But she's not coming back. Mrs. Ashido's knees nearly buckled. Aizawa looked at them, really looked at them. I will do everything in my power to bring her home. And for the first time, Aizawa realized, he wasn't just talking about Mina. A conference room. Heroes gathered. Screens displayed every known piece of footage of Moon Knight's movements. Endeavor. Hawks. Nezu. Aizawa. Others. This is a problem, Hawks muttered, arms crossed. One violent vigilante was bad enough. But now you're telling me he's got a sidekick. Not just a sidekick, Nezu corrected. A UA-trained student. Aizawa leaned against the table, silent. Thinking. We need to be careful, Nezu continued. We can't afford to escalate this into an all-out manhunt. And why not? Endeavor grunted. They're criminals. They should be treated like criminals. Aizawa's jaw tightened. They're kids, he corrected. And if we go after them the wrong way, we push them further into that life. Nezu folded his hands together. And yet, if we don't stop them, they will continue down this path. We must act swiftly, but smartly. A pause. Then Hawks sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. So, who's taking point on this? Aizawa stood straighter. His voice left no room for argument. I am. The city of Musudafu stretched far behind them, swallowed by the distance, as Izuku and Mina stood together atop a silent rooftop. She watched the streets below, the patrols, the flashing sirens in the distance. They're looking for us, she murmured. Izuku didn't say anything, he just watched. Then, Konshu's voice rumbled through the air, felt more than heard. They will never stop. Izuku exhaled. Let them try. Mina turned toward him, ready to ask what the plan was, only to feel his arms wrap around her. Hold on, he murmured. And then, the world shifted. A silver glow swallowed them whole. A rush of air, a pulling sensation like the universe itself folded inward. And suddenly, they were gone. The sand stretched for miles. A sky black as ink, with only the colossal full moon illuminating the ruins before them. Ancient, powerful, timeless. Mina stumbled slightly, catching herself on Izuku's shoulder. She looked around, eyes wide. Where? Izuku stepped forward, his cloak flowing behind him, Konshu looming above them. He turned back toward her, extending a hand. Welcome to the temple of the moon god. The desert stretched endlessly in all directions, dunes shifting under the pale silver glow of the moon. The sky above was an infinite abyss of stars, each one twinkling like an ancient secret waiting to be uncovered. Mina stood in the middle of it, her heart pounding. She had felt Konshu's power pull her across the world, a force beyond time and space dragging her forward in an instant. It had only lasted for a second, but the sensation of being unmade and rebuilt left her staggering slightly. Then she saw it, the temple of Konshu. Towering stone pillars loomed over them, adorned with ancient hieroglyphs depicting warriors in moonlit battles. Massive statues of Konshu stood tall, carved with haunting precision, each one bowing slightly, as if in eternal worship to the god of the moon. The temple itself seemed alive, humming with old power. Mina swallowed hard. So, this is where you trained. Izuku stood beside her, his arms crossed over his chest, cloak billowing slightly in the desert wind. He didn't answer immediately, instead taking in the sight before them like someone seeing an old battlefield. Yeah, he finally said, voice quiet. Mina tilted her head, trying to mask her unease with humor. Gotta say, I was expecting more, torches and ominous chanting. Before Izuku could reply, a voice rumbled through the air, reverberating through her bones. You have chosen a path of no return. Mina's breath hitched as Konshu materialized before them, his towering form casting an impossible shadow over the sand. His avian skull gleamed under the moonlight, eyes glowing with an eerie silver fire. Your body, your mind, your spirit, they will break before they are reforged. Are you prepared? Mina straightened, forcing confidence into her voice. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. Konshu tilted his head slightly. A flicker of approval. Then let us begin. Mina had never hated running more in her life. She had trained for years at UA, hero training, physical conditioning, combat drills. None of it prepared her for this. The desert stretched endlessly, the sand shifting beneath her feet like a living thing. With each step, her legs sank slightly, forcing her to use twice the effort to push forward. The moon burned high above them, casting long, eerie shadows over the dunes. Izuku ran ahead of her, his movements effortless, fluid, as if he wasn't even touching the ground. Mina, however, was struggling. Sweat dripped down her temple. Her breath came ragged, her legs screaming at her to stop. You're slowing down, Izuku said, not even looking back. Mina gritted her teeth. Yeah, no shit. Izuku kept running, then moved faster. She wanted to throw a rock at his head. But she kept going. And then, the projectiles started. Silver crescent blades shot through the air, slicing dangerously close. Mina barely dodged one, twisting mid-run. Another grazed her cheek, leaving a thin, glowing cut. Her heart slammed against her ribs. What the hell? Izuku dodged effortlessly, moving as if this was routine. Keep running. Mina growled, but forced herself forward. Konshu's voice echoed above them, cold and indifferent. A warrior who cannot withstand pain is not worthy of the moon's blessing. Mina snarled. Then watch me. Her legs felt like lead. Her lungs burned. And now, she was flat on her back, staring up at the night sky. Izuku stood over her, arms crossed, looking unimpressed. You need to stop trying to match me move for move, he said. Mina groaned, rolling onto her side. What do you want me to do? You said I have to fight without relying on my quirk. Izuku exhaled, offering her a hand. You're not fighting like yourself. You're trying to fight like me. She hesitated before gripping his hand, letting him pull her up. Konshu's voice cut through the silence. Then do not fight like him. You are not a shadow. You are fire. Use it. Mina paused. Then she smirked. Okay, she muttered. Let's try this my way, then. The next time they sparred, Mina stopped trying to mimic Izuku. She let her body move the way it wanted to, fluid, fast, unpredictable. She slid under his attacks, dodging with near impossible flexibility. Instead of blocking his hits, she redirected them. When she struck, she enhanced her punches with her acid, just enough to corrode his armor, force him to react differently. She used her surroundings, vaulting off stone pillars, turning every battle into a dance. She wasn't a brute force fighter. She was chaos in motion. Izuku adapted, matching her step for step. But now, for the first time since they started, he actually looked impressed. Mina collapsed onto the cold stone of the temple courtyard, staring up at the massive, glowing moon. Her chest heaved, but she felt alive. Izuku sat next to her, tossing her a flask of water. Not bad, he admitted. She grinned, sipping. Not bad, I'm kicking ass. Izuku huffed out a small laugh. You're surviving. She nudged his shoulder. Surviving is step one. He smirked slightly but said nothing. Mina turned her gaze back to the sky, the stars feeling closer than ever. Konshu stood atop one of the ancient statues, watching. She will become something greater. But only if she survives. Mina exhaled, heart steady. This was just the beginning. She was ready for whatever came next. The weeks blurred together in an endless cycle of battle, exhaustion, and pushing past limits Mina never knew she had. Her mornings started with grueling endurance drills, sprinting across the desert with no end in sight, dodging crescent-shaped blades that Konshu hurled at her whenever she slowed down. Her afternoons were spent sparring with Izuku, every movement more precise, every strike more intentional. Her nights, those were reserved for Konshu's shadow warriors, illusions pulled from the moonlight, forcing her to fight against phantoms of her own fears. And through it all, she endured. She was no longer the girl from UA. She was becoming something else. Again, Mina groaned, wiping sweat from her brow. You know I'm gonna lose this, right? Izuku simply raised his staff, standing in the courtyard of the temple ruins. The moonlight bathed the arena in an eerie silver glow. You lasted 5 minutes yesterday, he said, rolling his shoulders. Try for 6. Mina smirked. Oh, so I am improving. Izuku didn't respond. He launched forward. Mina barely had time to dodge as his staff came down, a brutal arc of movement. She twisted her body, ducking low and launching into a handspring backward. He was faster than before. No, she was faster too. She didn't try to match his strength. She didn't try to block him outright. She moved. She slid under his swings, using her smaller frame to weave through openings, throwing quick acid-enhanced strikes at his armor. A spark of surprise flickered in Izuku's eyes when she dodged a sweep that would have knocked her flat a week ago. Mina pressed her advantage, flipping over his next strike and lashing out with a sharp kick to his ribs. Izuku grunted, not in pain, just acknowledgement. For the first time, she felt like a real opponent. But then, he got serious. His movements became unpredictable. His crescent darts whirled through the air. His staff caught her ankle mid-dodge, sending her sprawling onto her back. And just like that, it was over. Mina groaned, glaring up at him. Izuku offered a hand. 6 minutes. Mina blinked. Then she grinned. Damn right. As they stood beneath the colossal full moon, Konshu appeared, his looming presence casting an unnatural shadow over them. You have proven your strength. Now, you will prove your will. Mina frowned. Oh, fun. That sounds ominous. Before she could say anything else, the world shifted. Darkness swallowed her whole, and suddenly, she was somewhere else. Mina stood in a familiar place. UA's dorm hallways. The soft hum of nightlights overhead. She turned, her heart hammering. The door to her old room was slightly open. Inside, she saw it exactly as she left it. A lump formed in her throat. And then she heard voices. She turned. Kirishima, Kaminari, Juro, Tsuyu, Iida, Uraraka, the people who had been her family. They were talking about her. She just left. Just like that. She could have told us something. She's with a killer now. What does that make her? Mina stepped forward. Guys. They didn't hear her. Her chest tightened. Then, a hand gripped her shoulder. She turned instinctively, throwing a punch. Only to freeze. It was her. A reflection of herself. Except this one was still dressed in her UA uniform, still wearing that bright, carefree smile she used to have. This isn't you. Mina clenched her fists. I know who I am. No, you don't. A beat of silence. Then Mina exhaled, and she let go. I'm not that person anymore, she whispered. The illusion shattered. She was back. Back at the temple. Back under the moonlight. Back in control. And Konshu was waiting. For the moon's blessing. Accepting her power. Konshu stepped forward, his silver gaze piercing through her. You did not hesitate. Mina stood tall. I made my choice already. Konshu nodded once. Then, he lifted a hand. A silver glow enveloped her, wrapping around her skin like liquid moonlight. And then, searing pain. Mina hissed, clutching her forearm as the energy branded itself into her skin. When it faded, a crescent moon tattoo gleamed on her wrist, glowing faintly in the dark. Mina stared at it, blinking. That was dramatic. Izuku crossed his arms. Oh, so you get a cool magic tattoo, but I had to carry around a whole ankh. Konshu tilted his head. The ankh is more potent. Thus, your burden is heavier. Izuku scowled. That's just a fancy way of saying I got screwed over. Mina snickered. Jealous. Izuku muttered something under his breath, turning away. Konshu merely laughed. Mina felt different. Stronger. Lighter. Her movements were faster than before, her balance sharper. And most importantly, the magic listened to her. It was strange using magic Izuku rarely used. It said it wasn't really his style. She trained, pushing the limits of her newfound abilities. Summoning crescent weapons, blades made of pure moonlight. Enhancing her agility, letting her leap higher, move faster. Summoning a moonlight ward, a protective shield against attacks. Experimenting with her quirk plus magic, leading to interesting results. She had never felt so alive. And Izuku, watching from the temple steps, knew she was ready. Mina stood beneath the massive moon, flexing her fingers, still feeling the energy hum beneath her skin. Izuku leaned against a stone pillar, watching. You're ready. Mina smiled. Damn right I am. From above, Konshu's voice echoed. Tomorrow, you will be reborn. Prepare yourself. Mina exhaled, looking down at her glowing tattoo. Tomorrow, she would truly become a warrior. She was ready. The temple of Konshu was silent. The usual whispers of the desert wind had faded, replaced by a heavy stillness that settled deep into Mina's bones. She stood at the center of the ancient courtyard, her crescent moon tattoo faintly glowing beneath the moon's pale light. This place had become home in the past few weeks. She had trained, bled, and transformed here. But tonight was different. Tonight, she would take her first life. Across from her, a man knelt on the temple floor, hands bound behind his back. His face was battered, his clothes torn. He had fought hard before being subdued. His one remaining eye darted wildly between her and the looming figure of Konshu, who stood above them all, ever watching. An intruder, Konshu intoned, his voice deep, commanding, absolute. Izuku stood off to the side, arms crossed, his mask obscuring his face. He wasn't going to interfere. This was her trial, a man who sought to desecrate my temple, steal from the sacred ruins. He has taken lives before. He would take more if allowed. Mina's hands clenched at her sides. You will be my warrior. Prove that you are ready. The words felt like iron chains around her chest. Her fingers hovered near the crescent blade strapped to her belt. It was different this time. She had fought, had knocked people out, even helped Izuku kill criminals in battle. But she had never done it alone. Never like this. The man glared at her, spitting onto the temple floor. Go on then. You heroes pretend you're different, but you're not. His voice was hoarse, bitter. You want to be a killer. Fine, let's see if you have the guts. Mina's grip tightened. Her heart pounded against her ribs, her breath shallow. She looked to Izuku. He didn't move. His expression unreadable. Do not look to him, Konshu warned. You must choose this for yourself. She swallowed. The blade in her hand felt heavier than it should. She had made this choice the moment she left Ua. The moment she followed Izuku into this life. This is what she signed up for. Her legs tensed. She moved. A single step forward. A flash of silver. And the man crumpled. Her breath hitched. Her fingers trembled. Blood dripped from the crescent blade in her hands, pooling around her feet. Her first kill. And she felt sick. She staggered backward, dropping the blade like it burned her. Her hands were covered in blood. It clung to her skin, warm and sticky, the metallic scent filling her lungs. It was so much worse than she expected. Her vision blurred. Her breath came in short, panicked gasps. Her mind screamed, what did I just do? Then, arms wrapped around her. Not harsh, not forceful. Just, there. She knew that embrace. Izuku. Mina collapsed against his chest, gripping his cloak tightly as she trembled. The dam inside her finally broke. She couldn't get the words out. Her voice was shaking. Izuku didn't say anything at first. He just let her breathe. Finally, he murmured, it gets easier. She knew he wasn't lying. She wasn't sure if that made it better or worse. She pulled back slightly, looking up at him. His green eyes, still visible through his mask, held something gentle. You did what you had to, he said, soft but firm. I won't tell you it was right or wrong. Just that it was necessary. Mina swallowed hard, her hands still shaking. She clenched them into fists. Konshu loomed above them, watching. That is the first of many, child. Mina forced down the nausea creeping up her throat. She wasn't going to cry anymore. She wiped her face with the back of her sleeve. Then, she stood. She had made her choice. Now, she would live with it. Mina turned to Konshu, her gaze steady despite the weight in her chest. What now? She asked, voice hoarse but unwavering. The god of the moon regarded her for a long moment, his skeletal head tilting slightly. Now, you swear yourself to me. The wind shifted, a low hum vibrating through the temple as the moonlight intensified. You will be my blade in the darkness, my shield to the innocent. You will serve as my voice, delivering vengeance upon those who have wronged the world. Mina exhaled. She knelt. With blood still drying on her hands, she bowed her head. I pledge myself to you, Konshu. Her voice was clear, strong. I will protect those who travel under your light. I will bring vengeance to the wicked. The temple shook. Power pulsed through her veins, like the very essence of the moon had fused with her soul. A new power, a new purpose. The moment she opened her eyes, she felt different. And then, her suit wrapped around her. 4. The birth of the Moon Squire. White fabric coiled around her body, flowing like a living entity. Bandages wrapped her arms and legs, forming intricate armor-like layers. A hood settled over her head, a crescent emblem glowing on her chest. She lifted her hands. Her new gloves were reinforced with silver plating, similar to Izuku's. She could feel the power humming beneath her skin. She turned to Izuku, who grinned slightly beneath his mask. "Not bad," he said. Mina smirked. "Damn right." Konshu tilted his head. "You are my second avatar. Never before have I had more than one champion." Mina blinked. "Oh, so, what do you call me?" A long pause. Then Izuku sighed. "We probably should have thought about that before now." Mina snorted. Wait, you didn't come up with a name first." Konshu was silent for a moment. "Moon Squire," he finally declared. Mina blinked. "That's it. It's temporary," Izuku added quickly. Mina sighed. "Well, guess it's better than Moon Intern." Konshu sighed. "We will find a more fitting title in time." Mina grinned, spinning once in her new suit. "Nah, I like it." Izuku chuckled. "Then it's official." She turned to face him fully, a fire in her eyes now. "Let's go home." As the silver glow surrounded them, the temple faded from sight. The desert winds disappeared, the air changed, and in an instant, they were back, standing on a rooftop in Japan, overlooking the city bathed in moonlight. Mina exhaled, adjusting her gloves. She was no longer a student, no longer a runaway. She was the Moon Squire. And her war was just beginning. To be continued. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and make sure to like and please hype this video. Now we will see you in the next video.